It was spinning forever, but we are finally live for episode number 67 of Chatting with Nuts, your favorite Friday night bookish podcast. I would say it's a fantasy book podcast, but we kind of talk about all types of books here. And I am accompanied by a wonderful and powerful guest that hasn't been here in quite a while. I think it's been over 9 months, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it's been quite a few episodes, but that is my good friend, Johanna. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm all right. I am still fighting a staph infection that has somehow, this is my last week of antibiotics, and somehow it's actually gotten worse this week, which is the worst. It's spreading, which isn't good. So I'll probably be hitting up an infectious disease specialist this week at some point, which isn't the way you want to kind of go into your holiday. But regardless, we're at Chatting with Nuts, so it's all gravy. We have so many usual suspects here. Everyone turning up to see Johanna. Certainly not me.
Ah,
It's good to see everyone in the chat and all the usual suspects. But everyone, I was just thrown back by how wonderful Johanna's sweater is. Can we all just appreciate how nice this sweater is? I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, going with the Christmas vibes here.
Oh yeah, Fantasy Watch says, Jimmy, you had that when we chatted. Geez, I've had it since September. I think you guys might be able to see, but I have these like bandages because there's holes in my trap in my collarbone.
I'm so sorry you're going through that. No.
It's not very cash money, as they say. Yes, I am Bubble Boy. There's no doubt. I've actually been feeling okay on the antibiotics. Like usually antibiotics like kind of kick my butt. And I was fine, but man, Wednesday, I just started feeling like dog water. Like I could not get up, it was just like very tired and very exhausting. But
Yeah, antibiotics can be so hard on the body too. So I
yeah,
hope that that's just the side effect, maybe. And gosh, I hope they're kicking in. I hope
yeah,
something works.
hopefully. We'll see what happens. David says that Jimmy, nobody says that. Not cash money at all. That's good, Jimmy. Keep feeling better. I don't know if I'm feeling better per se, but we're trying. We're trying. I'm gonna get this out of the way because I know Joanna's sitting there waiting for me to address it because I told her I would. Which poor Johanna, you're always on episodes where something tragic has happened. Last time Alan got hit by a car.
Gosh.
And this
That's
time
true.
it's something far more nefarious and terrible. So there is someone has been in this community and has his own YouTube channel. His name's Fit to Be Read, and he has been a part of almost every single live show, not like in the live show, but he's always been in the chat. Some of you here tonight and after the fact will recognize the name Fit to Be Read because you probably chatted with him in the chat. He was always very present with super stickers, super chats, and I highlighted it. I did clips in his videos and considered him to be a friend. And unfortunately, Michael, which is his name, was not the person we thought he was. And it's Fit to Be Read YouTube channel. And I wanted to bring this up, not because I want to talk about drama or anything like that, but I want to bring it up because he has been present. If you go back and watch all the Chatting with Nuts videos, you're probably hear me say that name. So I feel like I have to say something. And I honestly would encourage you all to unsubscribe from his channel for sure. But the reason why is Fit to Be Read has been arrested by the FBI for distribution and possession of nude media or nude photos and video. I'm trying to not say certain things so YouTube doesn't put me in a prison. Of children. So nude media of children and just absolutely heinous and terrible. I never had an inkling that Michael was off. I never had an inkling, which makes it so much worse, by the way, because sometimes you have a feeling about someone. Michael always seemed like, yeah. So basically just wanted to put that out there because he is someone who has been in the chat. I've read his name off. I've read his messages on here, and I would feel I don't want to leave anything open for interpretation. And I want to encourage everyone to, if you have followed his videos and stuff, to go and subscribe and erase him from your memories and your minds. And this will be the last time I probably ever speak about him, but I feel like it's important. And that the channel was Fit to Be Read. and his name was Michael. But he is currently in custody and he's awaiting trial. And yeah, you can look up the articles if you want or whatever. Obviously, innocent to proven guilty, but I would say the evidence is far not in his favor. It is very damning. And my sympathies are absolutely not with him, zero sympathies with him, but with all of the people that he's hurt. And yeah, so Johanna.
Yeah, I completely voice the same feelings that you do, Jimmy. And I did post a community post today in my community tab, basically expressing very similar sentiments. So I hope that anybody who's hearing this for the first time, I'm sorry about this news. And yes, please unsubscribe to his channel.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of people will say, well, you want all the facts. I would encourage you, if you're curious or have any doubts, to go read the articles. It is, it's damning. I mean, terrible, terrible stuff. And it's awful. There's absolutely zero room for someone like that in our community. I do not want anyone associated with anything like that to feel like this is a safe place where you can come. We are very open-minded and try to be welcoming in the community, but there's absolutely zero place for a person like that here. And
Zero tolerance for that.
Yeah, totally disavow it and zero sympathies. And if the evidence sticks and there's a guilty verdict, I hope he's put under the prison, to be honest, to say it lightly. So, Johanna, I'm sorry. Every time you come on,
it had to be said, though. It did have to be said. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, for sure. It's not fun to talk about anything like that, but it bothers me because I know just like you, some of his videos that are very, very popular, there's clips of us in there, and I wish it was no longer up because I don't want my face on that dude's channel at all. I just don't want to at all be associated or a part of that. And it's just really, really unfortunate. And I think about all the times I've read his name out in chat on Chatting with Nuts or thanks, my great chant, there's no way. I mean, it would take me a lot of time to go back and edit it in YouTube's editor, like hundreds of hours of watching to do that. So at least now there's something out there. Hopefully I can point to if people have any questions about it. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm glad to get that out of the way. And happy Friday, everybody.
Happy Friday. Yay.
I have absolutely no segue from that other than I just feel bad for you, Johanna, because like I said, last time Alan jumped in, PT Allen was a crazy experience. Remember Olga, the nurse?
Yes, I do remember. And remember the hand clip thing that he had?
Oh, the claw.
The
His
claw.
reach advantage.
Yes.
We were so worried about him then. But I feel like, when there's drama, I know who to call. I got to call Johanna on. That's my person.
Well, I was thinking though earlier, I was thinking about, and speaking of Alan, I've been recently trying to think about how many books I picked up thanks to Alan versus how many books I picked up thanks to you. You might be the winner right now. I don't know.
Oh,
I need to write out the list. But the funny thing is, because you were saying earlier that you're the fantasy network, but you talk about other books as well. I think I picked up more non-fantasy books thanks to you though too, including one we recently read, Disgrace. But yeah,
I'm grandma fiction now.
Grandma fiction, yes, as you said in your last video.
Jared, thank you so much for the 10 spot. It's extremely generous of you. Thank you. And he said, thank you both for saying something. I felt like I had to, I will leave zero things up to the interpretation when it comes to stuff like that, and it's also not fun being duped. It's not fun being fooled, which is exactly what I think a lot of people ended up feeling, and shame on him.
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, never had the slightest inkling with him. Never. Yeah.
Murphy said, Johanna, you didn't have to admit Jimmy won.
Well, I don't know if he won. I still need to tally up the books. But Murphy would be up there too. I've actually picked up a fair number of books thanks to Murphy. So I need to do the math. Figure this out.
I honestly, you're kind of inviting a holy war from Alan.
Oh, I know.
He will mobilize the troops.
Yeah.
Like Anitha's in the chat. I know she's devout.
Oh, that's
to
true.
Alan's causes.
Oh, so. I'm nowhere near Anitha. If I went head to head with Anitha as far as how many books I picked up, thanks to Alan, she would win. She picks up She's picked up so many more books that Alan has read than I have.
How do you manage so many people recommending you things? Because like even here in chat, we're seeing so many people say, I've recommended you stuff. What about me? So I feel like you do listen to recommendations. Like you're kind of open for invitation. So like, how do you balance that?
That's a
Like,
good
how do you know to
question.
listen to somebody?
I'm trying to think about this. I mean, I have picked up a book thanks to Evie, and yeah, I don't know. I That's a really good question. I mean, at one point, of course, before I had a channel, I didn't have anybody recommending me specific books, but you have actually gone out of your way and said, "Joanna, I think you would love this book," or you've said it out to me. You told me specifically about that. So,
Well, I do try to be precise with my recommendations because we are in a
Mm,
community where recommendations are ripe and they're plentiful and it's great. But I want my recommendation to kind of mean something, which is why I get frustrated with Alan because I will recommend him a book and I'm like, Alan, I know like you don't read anything I like people tell you to read, but I'm telling you this is the one. And every time he has picked up a book that I've recommended, it has been good. But it's like starting to square one every single time. I have to like pull the teeth, and I'm like, just read Lies of Locke Lamora, Alan. Like, just read Lies of Locke
I
Lamora. It's
know.
so
I was gonna say, like, can we talk Alan into not rereading Great Coats next year and instead picking up The Gentleman Bastards?
you're no fear tonight.
I
Just
can't
going at
help it. When I heard him say, "I'm gonna reread the Great Coats," I'm like, "No, you've already read that. Read
it.
Locke Lamora." Yeah, that was my thought.
Murphy asked me how Beartown is going. It's going very well. I actually was supposed to put it off until I got some of these other reads, but like I keep going back to it, and the chapters are like itty bitty, so I can just like bite off a little bit, chew on it for a day, and then come back to it. But I had someone today say that Bachman is the male Colleen Hoover, and it shook me to my core because I was like, oh no,
Oh,
what if
no.
it's true?
I've only read one Bachman book before. I read Anxious People.
What did you think about it? Because my good friend Zan did not like it, and
Yeah,
it took me back. You didn't
I
like it either?
I didn't click with it, and I can't tell you why. I think it definitely had a very specific type of style, and it just didn't quite land for me. I don't know. It was
Yeah,
okay. I didn't hate it, but I just didn't quite gel with it as much as I'd hoped.
that
And I
might be the
think
reason.
it's one of those things where, like when you have a certain feeling about a book and you're like, okay, okay, I get that. But then you contrast that with hearing somebody just feel like the book knocked it out of the park and you're like, "Oh, okay, then I really didn't like it." And it might have been just like I was okay with it, but now that I hear that other people had this experience with it, then I know that I probably just wasn't the right reader or you know what I mean? Do you know
Well,
what I'm talking
Murphy
about?
says Anxious People is one of her least favorites,
Okay.
so you might not be alone in that. I mean, I've only started Beartown, but so far, I mean, and Alan, it's funny. Alan recommended it to me, and I asked Murphy. I said, "Have you ever read this?" And then she's like, "Really?" It's like literally one of my favorite books, and I'm like, I didn't know. I had no idea.
Yeah. I have heard good things about his other books. I've heard great things about Beartown. Yeah. And I think isn't
Yeah.
that a series? Does he have a sequel to that?
Yeah,
Am I
yeah, I think it's
imagining
a
that?
trilogy. Yeah.
Okay.
What's up, Gavin? Gavin reads it all, says the one book by him I connect with was Every Day the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer. We are talking ugly crying.
Oh, well, I might wanna try that. I'm curious. Yeah.
I someone said their favorite Bachman book is Thinner. A different Bachman.
Oh, the Stephen King Bachman? Got it.
Yeah.
Mm.
So here's a question for you. Since we're you've already said you hated Anxious People and you hate Bachman. What is your most, and my Discord was doing this today. Do you have a few books that you would put on your like disappointment of 2023 list? Like books that just didn't land for you?
Oh, goodness. Um, yeah. I think one that immediately comes to mind is, oh, I cannot remember the name of it now.
It
It's
was
the
that
one that
forgettable?
it's it's the one that, the author of that Wong wrote. What is it called? If y'all remember? The Sword of Kaigen author?
Oh,
Um,
Blood over Brighthaven?
Blood Over Brighthaven, yeah. Yeah,
No,
that
no
one just
good,
didn't
huh?
quite land with me. Yeah, I wasn't
Hmm.
crazy about it. I shared some wonderful thoughts with Murphy about it because she read it and she really enjoyed it, And I totally appreciated her thoughts and understand why the book would work for certain people. Because I think it's one of those situations where you read the book and you understand what the author was intending with it and what they were going for, and they succeeded in doing what they were going for. Like I
Mhm.
feel like she knew what she wanted to do with this book, and she very much succeeded in doing it, but it just didn't quite work for me. Um, yeah, that was one.
I heard it's more young adult. Is that it? Would you say that's true?
That it felt that way to me. I felt like some of the dialogue felt a little juvenile for me, and I think the other thing too is that she starts off with such an interesting premise for the world, such an interesting idea about this world that's protected by this dome, and there's this city with this, interesting, um, this interesting technology that's fueled by magic. And then the outside, there's this force that's killing off the native people in the land. And it starts off as a really interesting setup, but then she never really goes anywhere with it. Like, I feel like there was so much more world building that I wanted. And it felt very, very, very zoomed in on dialogue, but I just didn't really feel the dialogue. I didn't quite connect with the characters very much. And I felt like a lot of the plot beats were very predictable to me. So, I don't know. It just didn't quite land for me personally. But I feel like she did succeed in doing what she wanted to do, like I said. And I have to give her praise for that. And I could totally see that working for the right reader. I would say if people are wanting to get into a fantasy standalone, they don't mind that it reads a little bit young and they want something that's clearly fantasy, clearly a secondary world, but maybe not so heavy in the world building, not so heavy in the settings, because I know there's an audience for that. I've heard
Yeah.
people say, I want to read fantasy, but I just get bogged down with the world building and the setting descriptions and the lore and the history. I don't feel like she bogs you down with that at all. There are little insertions here and there about the history, but I don't think it's heavy as far as that's concerned. It's very, very light and minimal. So I think if you like that, then you might enjoy the book.
Yeah, I think it having a dome automatically makes me interested, and I've also heard it compared to Full Metal Alchemist, and I think the Full Metal Alchemist like magic stuff is really really neat. So I'm still curious about it. It's definitely not something that I'm like dying to get to, but it's one that I'm hoping one day to read. Um, that one not as big of a hit as Sword of Kaiken. Pretty
Oh, I
clear.
loved Sword of Kaigen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, there were little things about Sword of Kaigen. I did have some criticisms here and there, but the things that Sword of Kaigen did well, in my opinion, did better than almost any fantasy book out there. Like, I thought some parts were just absolutely breathtaking, incredible.
Yeah. I um I think that sort of Kaigen is one of those books. I'm not saying she can't write another great book, but like I, I almost want to see her do more of that. Like
Mhm.
I would like to have more of that, but it's hard to say that because sort of Kaigen being a standalone is one of its best features. Actually, is being one and done with it, and I don't want to see anything. I would hate to see anything like sequel wise or whatever, like ruin things that happened in that book. And even with the side plot thing that was really weird, I still thought it was a pretty excellent book. So I don't know. I'm just happy that she's still writing because I know that there was a time where she had like a trilogy and she canceled it. And then she was doing like a serial release of something and it wasn't clear what she was going to do. So I'm just happy that she's still writing books.
I would
Um,
probably pick up another book by her, honestly. Yeah.
oh, wow. Okay.
I'm so glad that she's still writing too, even though that book just didn't quite hit the mark for me. I still think I would pick up another book by her. And I'd be curious about your answer to that question, though. Is there any book that comes to your mind?
Oh, 11th cycle. It's not even close.
Ah,
It's not
got it.
even close. Me and my friend Ben, we were literally counting down the days until that book released because the early reviews were like really good. I saw Patrick saying, "Hey, this is really good," and it's Dark Souls theme. The cover was sick. Let's be honest, the cover is still pretty amazing, and I genuinely think it's one of the worst books I've ever attempted to read. Like I really disliked it. I read the first like 4 chapters, DNF'd it. Ben continued on, and then a couple other people I knew read it, and they were also not enjoying it. And I was like, okay, maybe this is like a dog pile situation. Like maybe I need to come at this without any kind of bias. So I started the book again, and I was like, nope. I went like 8 or 10 chapters in, and I was like, no, it's just getting worse. Like it's just
Oh,
getting
no.
far worse. And that book was interesting because it made a splash, kind of like when it came out, and you saw like a lot of the 5 stars, but then slowly you saw things, kind of start going the other way. And now it seems like that book is just dead in the water. Like I don't see any new reviews for it. I don't see it. You know what I mean? And I don't know why that is, but yeah.
That's a really good point. I felt like there was a lot of buzz around that book for a while, and I just haven't heard a single thing about it in a long, long time.
You're all tripping says 11 cycle is the exact moment I started trusting Jimmy's opinion. Well, I'm glad that we got there.
Mm. Yeah, I wouldn't even touch it after you talked about it. So,
Yeah, I always try to come at things from like a pretty middle stance, right? Kind of like what you just did. Like I try to figure out who the book's for and who those people would that would enjoy it. That's why I'm never like really inflammatory with the language I use about books, unless I'm being tongue in cheek or I'm joking around with like Alan or somebody. Because I always think about the people who do enjoy that book, and like I don't want them to feel like I'm insulting them or misrepresent something. But that is one of those books where like I feel pretty firmly that it's not good. It's one of the very few books I feel that way about. So, and I still am open-minded enough to think that maybe I'm wrong, but
yeah.
I don't think I am. I don't think
I don't know. Yeah, I doubt it.
Another one that was disappointing to me, and it's not because it's a bad book, but because like I was so excited to try it, was Crying of Lot 49, because Tad Williams recommended it, because he said Pynchon, or I never know how to say his name, Thomas Pynchon. We'll say Pynchon. We'll go with that. I was really excited to read Crying of Lot 49. It was super short. People say this is a great place to start because you can kind of see like if you're going to mesh with him. And there were moments in the books where I was like, man, this is crazy good. And then I was like, I just don't understand what's going on. And by the end of it, like I think I just felt really dumb at the end
Oh,
of it.
no.
So it's not that I think he's bad by any means, but you know, uh,
Yeah.
I was disappointed because I was really expecting to kind of go through a tear of all of his works after that. And now Gravity's Rainbow is just sitting on my shelf, probably never gonna
Oh,
be opened.
okay. So it's the same author as Gravity's Rainbow? Because I
Yes.
heard that book is very complex.
Yes, and that's kind of his thing. Like he's definitely that postmodern, like really out there type deal. And I will say, I will probably read Crying of Lot 49 again someday, because it's definitely one of those books that you can like read multiple times because it's not clear what's actually happening. It's like
Mhm.
almost psychedelic when you're reading it. But I was just disappointed because I was expecting to come out of that like pumping my fist. But it wasn't that. It wasn't the case. Hellbent by Lee Bardugo, I liked it, but I expected to love it because I really loved Ninth House. Like Ninth House was kind of an anomaly. It's not
Yeah.
something you would think I would have liked, but I really loved it. And I felt like Hellbent leaned into stuff about the story I didn't care as much about. And it just lost. The ending was interesting. So I don't know. I'm not going to say it lost me, but I'm far less interested than I was after Ninth House, which is sad because Lee Bardugo is someone that's fairly popular and she writes a lot. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll get into Six of Crows and try those out. But after reading Hellbent, a lot of that momentum is just kind of sputtered out,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I think you have a common reaction to that book. Although maybe I'm wrong, because wasn't that
No, people
what
love Hellbent.
won?
No,
It
people,
won, didn't it, for Goodreads Choice Awards for fantasy? I
yes,
think that's crazy.
discover the top book. I literally have it up right now because where are the winners? Like, is there a winner list?
I think there are winners now. I thought that was the winner, but I could be wrong.
Oh, here it is. View results. Okay. Because I saw, yeah. So it looks like winner of best fiction was Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, which Josh from Red Fury Books read it and really liked it.
I saw
But
that.
I don't I don't think I'm ever gonna read it. I'll be honest. Are you? Are you
I don't
interested?
know. Kind of. I'm kind of interested, but I feel like it's one of those things if I wait a while, I probably won't be interested. Uh, I might wait a while though. So, it's not a priority right now, and Hellbent was something I wanted to get to before it came out, and now I don't wanna pick it up because not only you, but I have heard some other people, I guess just in our circle or our corner of booktube that also didn't quite enjoy that book,
Well, there was quite
and
a few people in my Discord that loved it.
oh,
So
really?
so
Oh.
I'm completely open. I just think that maybe I was interested in stuff that is no longer important because like we've set up the story. And I'm also a book one guy. Like I
Yeah,
love book ones. I tend to kind of drop off a series at times.
I
So
sometimes like that too. I'm
yeah,
sometimes like that too.
I think it's worth your time to try it out because it's not that long.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I loved Ninth House, but like you, I would say that that's a book that I wouldn't have thought would be for me because I
Mm,
don't usually tend to like or vibe with urban fantasy. But something about that book just really pulled me in. I remember I read it on Halloween the year it came out and just really feeling the atmosphere of that book for some reason or just getting into the vibe of that book.
mhm.
And it really surprised me. But yeah, I just haven't continued on for whatever reason. I think I might pick up though The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo because I've heard that it's kind of similar to that. And I know that you liked The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and that seems to be a very popular book. I honestly did start it years ago and then DNF'd it. But I think it's just where I was with reading at the time. So I might check that out.
Dang. I hope you do. Hellbent did win. It won Best Fantasy, and number 2 was Tress of the Emerald Sea, and then A Day of Fallen Night. I can't read the font on the cover.
Yeah,
And then some other
They've
stuff
Fallen
that
Night.
yeah, some other stuff that I'm not honestly sure what it is. But it's crazy to me that Bardugo beat Sanderson handily, almost by 20,000 votes. Now, obviously, Goodreads Choice Awards, they are what they are.
Yeah.
There's no committee appointing these things. It's literally how they were shelved. So that tells you a lot about like the demographic of the people using the website and who's popular or whatever. It doesn't really have any kind of like quantifiable objectivity to it, I don't think. So um but it is interesting to see Lee Bardugo stomp Brandon Sanderson. It's kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
I have to say that this year, I don't know if it was like this for you, and maybe it's just a YouTube algorithm thing, I'm not sure. But I feel like this year, every time I turned on my YouTube feed, I just felt inundated in Goodreads Choice Awards reactions. And I know there are always a lot every time this happens every year, but I feel like I just saw so many more this year. I don't know, did you see a lot or was
No,
that
I
just
only
me?
saw like people not understanding how things were nominated.
Yeah.
And I just turned my brain off. And honestly, I really didn't see much from it. I think
Okay.
there might have been a little bit of discussion in some of the Discord threads that I'm in, but
Oh.
I didn't see a ton of it. So the algorithm spared me from
Ah,
from it.
it totally was an algorithm thing then, because I
I
just
clicked
saw
on one and
so
I
many
was a wrap.
reactions. And usually and every year, I never see it be it's never positive. It's always like, "What's wrong with Goodreads?" Every year. I'm like, "We should just have a booktube version of this or something."
I was trying to add folding knife to my active reading last night and it would not load and I was getting so mad. Like I was losing it. Um, But I have to tell you, and Alan is not listening because he would already been in chat yelling at you at this point. Folding Knife by KJ Parker. The first 4 chapters are fire. It's so good. Like
Oh,
it's so
no.
good. It went so like if something happens at the beginning of the book, and I'm like, what? Wait, what? Alan read this? I'm like, this is an
Uh-oh.
Alan book. It surprised me. It was fantastic, though.
I'm
I
saying
felt
"uh-oh" because I'm scared you're gonna influence me to wanna pick it up, and then Alan's gonna get mad at me
you
because I picked it
can't.
up because you influenced me instead of him.
If he hears this and then you read it, you're done.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, it's a
I
wrap.
know. It definitely is.
You are already on thin ice.
Oh, yeah.
So,
It's true.
playing
It's
with
true.
fire. Jared said Alan was instrumental in Fourth Wing winning Romantasy.
Uh,
I had 0 doubts that Fourth Wing was
oh,
gonna
yeah.
win Romantasy.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Do we think that's an industry plant? Is Fourth Wing an industry plant?
I don't know. What do you mean by industry plant? Like something that the
Something that
industry
was like it
creates
looks like
or
it's organic, but it was actually strategically placed, usually by big money backers or even like a large publishing company or something like that. It happens in music quite a bit. Usually, you can tell pretty much immediately after you learn about the person that's behind the music. It happens a lot in rap and specifically right now drill rap. You see a lot of industry plants, and people get furious because they want some sort of authenticity, right?
That's I'm curious about that. I feel like it's kind of similar to what a friend was telling me recently about K-pop. They were saying that K-pop has a whole science behind. Oh. Oops. I'm scared.
Alan said, "I'm always listening."
Oh, no. I'm in
Uh-oh.
trouble. I'm always in trouble.
Bart's
Yeah,
Bookspace says, I'm pretty happy with Lives of Puppets winning the Sci-Fi Goodreads Award. I had a great time reading it. I didn't even know that it was sci-fi. I am
me neither.
shocked that it beat Lightbringer. but that is definitely like maybe my bias because everyone around me read Lightbringer and loved Lightbringer.
Mhm.
People are losing it that Alan showed up.
I'm in so much trouble right now. Oh my goodness.
Uh, David Sloan said it was me. I wrote Fourth Wing to pay my student loans.
There you go.
There's some
Yeah.
people here who do believe, by the way, that it is an industry plant. I'm half joking, but I'm very curious.
It
Like
could be. I mean, Romantasy is a big deal right now. So
I knew that Fourth Wing would dominate, though. Doesn't surprise me. There's a huge gap.
Mhm.
None of this. It's the big thing. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but there was, I think I might have said this to Murphy, but there was a midnight release for book 2 at my local bookstore. And this local bookstore is newer and it's not super popular. And I was thinking, like, when they made the post, I was like, oh, that's going to be cringe. Like 3 people are going to show up. No, they packed the place at midnight and they have a bar and it was just a bunch of ladies getting turned up and buying Iron Flame. I was like, what is going on? I thought it
what?
was gonna be like 5 people. Nope. Packed,
No.
nightclub-esque. I mean, it was wild.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes. Yes.
I feel like I'm missing the wave. I feel like I need
I
to read this thing.
I guess so. Uh, yeah, that's interesting. For Fourth Wing?
Yeah, for the sequel, Iron Flame,
Oh.
I think is what it's called.
So is it like an older audience in addition
Yeah,
to a younger
I
audience
would say I
or?
would say it was like late 20s from the pic. I'm guessing from pictures. I honestly am terrible at guessing ages. But it seemed like it was, maybe early 30s, late 20s.
Hmm. Wow.
Kelsey hasn't even read book 1 and she bought book 2,
Oh, okay.
which
Cool.
I can't judge her because I have a lot of books I haven't read, but I wanted to judge her. I want to be like, you haven't read the
You read
first
book
one yet.
1. Yeah.
It might be terrible,
Yeah.
but
Well, I
that
remember when Twilight was a huge deal when they first came out, when the Twilight books were first coming out, there were news segments about mothers, about 30-year-old women who were really into the craze. So it wasn't just a younger audience. And I think people might have been surprised by that, but then not long after that, I think is when 50 Shades of Grey came out. So the market heard that, I guess. I don't know.
Jared says, I think the majority, like 55% of YA readers,
Yeah.
are actually women in their 20s and 30s. Is this true?
True.
Is this the thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at BookTube, actually, when I found BookTube, most of what I found were young adult women in that age range who were talking about YA fiction, and there are still a ton. There are still a ton of booktubers out there, and I know they're representing a demographic of women out there
Mhm.
who are reading YA fiction. I kind of have a theory behind that too. I think part of that, one of my theories behind that, because I did go through a phase where I was reading a lot of YA fiction, even though I was an adult, and part of it was because, at least when I grew up as a teen, when I was a young adult, there wasn't a young adult section, and if you picked up fantasy, there were some fantasy books, I guess, that had female perspectives, but a lot of YA fantasy, especially if it's written by women and if it has female characters, I felt represented. I was like, "Oh, wow,
Mm.
there are cool women in these books, and I feel kind of represented." You know what I mean? So, it was kind of exciting to see that for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, I think being represented in a book and being the person that's being represented, it strikes me as odd that people are shocked when people connect with that thing. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like they're like, "Why do you like this so much?" Well, it's me. It's
Yeah.
it's not just your generic, white dude, middle age, like doing whatever that all of them. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
those kind of representations really do connect with a certain audience that can reflect it. So, but I know many people who are confused by that. Like they don't
Yeah.
understand why there's a trend of these things, and it's like, well, that's what the people are wanting, and that's what the people are reading. Clearly, Fourth Wing is resonating with people. Uh, there is something to that.
I think so. I mean, it's also I know I've told you this a bunch of times. It was also why A Song of Ice and Fire resonated with me so deeply when I found it because I was like, "Wow, there are actually female POVs and they're complex. They're not, nothing against Arwen and Galadriel, but these are women who have
Get him.
flaws and who are vulnerable, and there's just so much nuance to these characters, and it made me feel like I don't know, there was something about that for me as a female reader to see that on page was
That's
special.
that's one of those things that I feel like people who maybe haven't read the series, only watch the show or something, that I think they miss that about A Song of Ice and Fire is the female characters. Um, we had an absolute brain rotted comment on Ben the Knee the other day when we covered the House of the Dragon teaser trailer, and they're like, "Am I the only person that hates House of the Dragon because all it's trying to do is like be woke because it has strong female characters?" And I was like, have you read George R. Martin's books? Like, do you know Brienne of Tarth?
Yeah.
No, like what are you talking about? I was just completely brain dead. Like it's like they have a disconnect of like what they're reading. Um, to
Yeah.
me, Martin does some really great things. I mean, he's open for criticism just like any other author, but maybe that's a piece of his work that maybe doesn't actually get enough light because everyone talks more about the spectacle of the series.
Yeah, because, when I grew up, most of my friends were male fantasy readers, and so they were recommending me things like David Eddings and Elric and Dune, and I love those books, don't get me wrong. Well, I kinda dropped off on Eddings, but but I love those books. But as far as how they represent women, I mean, that's not the strength of those books. I did love Jessica and Dune, but, it's not the same. It's not the same. It's not really a focus as much as what Martin did in those books.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish maybe it was talked about more, but I guess I'm the person that could probably start that kind of conversation. So maybe I should talk about it more.
Yeah.
Murphy says, my mom loved Fourth Wing. I laughed when she told me she read it because it seems so out of box for her. She said she's not going to tell me what she reads anymore. Well, this
Aw.
is the thing. I've been seeing, Instagram stories or whatever from people that I went to like high school with. And they're taking pictures of Ford and putting on their story. And I'm like, whoa, they read? Like, that's wild. So it might be a gateway to get people back into reading, or
Yeah.
maybe it's the first book they've ever read, but maybe it'll just like tug on them a little bit to be like, I'd like to read more about dragons. I would like
Yeah,
to read
no
more about
shame in that. Like,
yeah.
no shame in that whatsoever. I'd be so proud if any family member of mine, older than me, younger, got into any kind of fantasy.
Yeah. I think if it can be a rabbit hole, and it's one of those things where I like this fantasy, but not that fantasy. And then you get more curious as you wait on the other book, and then maybe you read another fantasy and you end up liking it. And then all of a sudden they're reading Long Price Quartet and subscribing to the Library of Alexandria. Who knows?
Yeah. You never know. Exactly.
So when we're talking about like YA and how female readers go to that, there's obviously a stigma of female authors being labeled YA even when they are not.
Mhm.
I even felt that a little bit earlier when I said, "Oh, Emma Wong's new book is YA," right? Like I have to ask those questions because like I don't know if people are just misrepresenting it, because that does seem to be like a stigma. What do you think? What do you think is behind that?
I don't know exactly, except that I feel like this might be a huge stretch, and I don't really have any hard data to back this up. But I feel like because the fantasy genre has been infantilized for so many years, like it's been a long journey for us to be taken seriously as a genre. And I feel like in order to be taken seriously as a genre, we have to resort to violence and making it. And here's the thing, if you look at our history has always associated seriousness. It's not been that long that women have had the right to vote. If you think about the grand scheme of time, it hasn't been that long. And so I feel like there is a sense of like, because of patriarchy, we have a background in patriarchy. And I think that because we want to be taken seriously as a genre, that lean into masculinity kind of is an association with being more serious, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And women have been infantilized so much, and because we don't want fantasy to be infantilized, we want to make it more masculine to be taken more seriously. I know I don't have data to back that up. I'm just going out on a limb, and that's my thought on that. What do you think?
I think that is definitely possible, and maybe that's even why people have pointed to like, well, don't read this fantasy that has the laser bolts and everything, or lightning bolts and lasers, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And look at this thing that is grittier and more
Mhm.
realistic, down to earth and grim and dark, and that makes it more serious. I
Mhm.
think that also could be a symptom of what you're saying, of wanting it to not be something that's taken lightly.
Exactly. I mean, even if you look at, I mean, it's hard because, yes, we've made a lot of progress in our societies over the last decade or whatever. But I mean, if you think about it, even just women in power, how hard and masculinized they have to be taken seriously. So many women have felt that the need to come across in a more masculine way, and being feminine is not considered that of being a strong leader. I know there are exceptions to that, and I know that
Mm.
we've seen more exceptions to that in recent times. But I'm talking about historically, that's been the move women have had to make in order to be taken seriously. And so I think that there's still a move though when it comes to women, one, not to be taken seriously. We still have pay disparity with men and women. And so I think that that translates into the genres too. So I think that there is kind of a sense of like, okay, we want to make fantasy be taken seriously. So we need to make it hard. We need to make it grittier, like you said. And so I think that anything that has a sense of being feminine backs it back into that uh, infantilized perception that we want to
Yeah.
avoid.
Yeah, I mean, actually, we keep talking about Emma Wong, but she's just on my brain now. But like, sort of, Kaigen is an example of a very female driven fantasy that is anything but young adult, and
Mhm.
is in my opinion a very serious piece of work. There's the whole superhero thing, which is weird, but like at its very core, it drives the adult experience of not just females but also males, but more so from the female perspective. So there's things that we can point to that are exceptions to that, but I think maybe the perspective of the genre and the readership possibly is what you're saying.
Yeah. I don't know if it was just me though. I think one thing that was really unique about Soraka again too is that it felt to me at the beginning, I felt like we were following the young male character. And then little by little, I realized, oh, that's not the main character in this story.
Mhm.
So it was kind of like a bait and switch, which is cool.
It was
But I
cool.
know, but I know that there is a lot of, I mean, for better or worse, there is a lot of implicit bias out there when it comes to female authors. I would say that's true because I mean, again, it's just hard because I think I would need to dig up more research about this, but I know in music, I'll tell you this. I read an article about female composers, so women who write music, because if
Mhm.
you look at a lot of the history of Western music, a lot of the composers that we study, Bach, Beethoven, Brahms, Haydn, usually all male composers. Very few female composers are talked about historically. It just wasn't a thing,
Hmm.
at least in the West, in Western music. And what I found in one article is that there was a critic who was listening to a certain composer and he never knew who this composer was. He just heard the music over and over again and would write critical reviews about the music. And he kept using words like powerful and, I don't know, just magnificent and these words that also seem to have masculine connotations. I can't remember the specific language he used. And then one day he found out the composer was female. And suddenly his verbiage changed. He started using words like he still wrote rave reviews about the music, but now his terminology was like delicate and
Mm.
sensitive. It changed. And the author of this article that I read, her theory was not that he was trying to be biased at all, but that he heard the music differently when he realized it was a female composer, that it changes the way that we adjust our ears, the way that we adjust for what we're looking at. And so that translates into if we know it's a female author, we might look a little more critically, well, did they get this right? Versus if it's a male author, it's like, oh, this is very adult. This is already serious. You know what I mean? So there could be a little bit more critique there. And she gave several other examples as well, but it was interesting.
Yeah, and I'm not. I'm curious if it's entirely bad to
Oh, yeah.
you know what I mean, to say, oh well, whoever wrote this behind this from whatever part of the world they're in or whatever their gender might be. Like, I don't know if obviously it leads to biases, right? And
Mhm.
that's a problem. But
Yeah.
in some ways, it might make something in the story be more understandable, possibly too. So that's something I would have to think on.
Well, I think, that is a very complex angle to look at
Mhm.
because, yeah, maybe a female writing from a female perspective, for example, might have something different to bring to the table, or a male writing from a male perspective might have something different to bring to the table, just because of their personal experience. And I think that has to be validated. That's something that I would validate. I think it's more just the idea of this is on a higher level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Automatically, because it's male versus this can't be as high of a level. It's more when we look at it from that terminology overall. But as far as like certain aspects, specific aspects, I could see your point about that.
Yeah, and do you feel like maybe because you were kind of talking about like the big composers, right?
Mhm.
Is it possible that because J.K. Rowling is so large and so successful, I mean, literally one of the biggest authors successful, and she wrote YA,
Mhm.
does that maybe have an effect?
I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know.
Like when people think about fantasy, they think about Tolkien. I'm talking about like the general population, right? They
Yeah.
think about Tolkien, so they think about an old World War One veteran or World War Two, whichever it was. I can't remember right now. Don't kill me. Um, is it they think of him and they think of Oxford or what I'm saying? Like, so they look
Yeah.
at it that way. Whereas, like, when a female approaches fantasy, they think, oh, like J.K. Rowling. Because as
Yeah.
humans' brains make those associations all the time. Like, we look for
Yeah.
patterns, we look for relations.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, we all do that. I don't even think I'm above that. Like, I think I do that,
Oh, yeah,
without
it's very
meaning to.
natural. Yeah,
It's
very
very
natural.
natural, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you see an association over and over and over again, that's just what you're gonna have in your head.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know the answer to that, though.
Oh, I don't either. There will be no answers here tonight. Just,
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't yeah, no answers whatsoever.
I'm just
Yeah, just
curious.
questions. I just
Yeah,
have questions. I'm
I'm
always coming from a questioning
I'm just
standpoint.
asking questions. Okay.
Yeah. Back up. Yeah. So
uh, Books of Genghis Khan says, I think Joanna is onto something here. There may be a reason why so many people dislike non-masculine Sansa. Uh, I certainly think that's possible. It's also well within people's rights to find her to be an annoying brat because that is kind of how it reads at times. I've always thought that Sansa is a stand-in for the typical fantasy reader of the genre over the decades that George R. R. Martin grew up, and he literally takes Sansa's POV to smash apart a lot of the cliches and tropes of the fantasy genre, and Sansa is supposed to represent us if we had been reading through the decades of fantasy, not so much now, right? Because those things have been all twisted and turned. And I'm not saying that's the first time it happened, but I'm just saying I think that's what George R. R. Martin's uh, goal was with Sansa. And it felt like he was trying to have a conversation with the lineage of where he came from to get to the point of writing Game of Thrones. So I'm a huge fan of Sansa,
mhm.
especially in the later books. Uh, love it.
I don't know if any author is better at getting me to change my perspective on characters, honestly.
Yeah. And Matt Keane says overly grim can seem just as young to me, like being edgy,
Yeah.
which I totally agree with you. Um, Murphy says, when I see a series seem to try to be overly edgy without actually doing anything with the darkness, it reads as immature to me. Yeah, I've definitely read those books, especially being someone who likes darker fantasy. It can happen.
Yeah, I started to feel that over a while because I feel like there was a time when I would have said, "Oh, I love dark books because I love grimdark fantasy." I would just kind of make blanket statements like that. And then after a while, I started hearing people say, "I think you'd like this book because it's grim dark. It's dark." And I'm like, that just doesn't land for me anymore. Like, I need a purpose behind it. I need to feel like it's earned somehow or that has some sort of depth behind why it's there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have fallen into that category as well, which I get it. I read a
Yeah.
lot of dark stuff and I've enjoyed it, and I'm willing to talk about those books that made me very uncomfortable and that honestly are they're very uncomfortable to talk about in public. I actually mull over it a lot, and I feel nervous at times. I know you probably felt that way about Disgrace by J.M.
Mhm.
Coetzee.
Yeah.
I because you're going to go in and you're going to say this book is phenomenal, and people are like, oh, I'm going to pick that up, and I'm like, it's going to ruin your day. Like I don't want you to read this if it's not something that you would enjoy. Um, But because of that, I do get a lot of like, this book has disgusting things in it. You're going to love it. And I'm like,
I think you did a really good job talking about that book, by the way, in your wrap up.
thank you.
It made me kind of look back at how I talked about that book in my wrap up because I don't feel like I feel like I did kind of hammer the point that it was a disturbing book, but I don't feel like I'm not sure if I conveyed how much I enjoyed the book at the same time because it's always like a fine line to say I enjoyed this book. It's really disturbing, but it was incredibly compelling, and I feel like I wanna make that come across too, you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it's, like, uncomfortable to say, "I found this to be incredibly compelling, but it's very dark and disturbing, and you should be warned."
Yeah. And also, whenever you're saying, like, I enjoyed this book and it's from a very problematic point of view,
Mhm.
I always worry people are going to make a judgment about me. It's like having Berserk on my shelf. I just don't want anyone ever to open them, like visiting, like, oh, what's this? And just like turn and there's like, all kinds of rated R things going on with tentacles and everything else. I'm like, yikes.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really tricky line because you don't want people to judge you as a person for what you find compelling,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I think that it's actually that uncomfortable quality that makes it so interesting to read books like that, to be able to talk
Mm.
about things that you wouldn't otherwise feel comfortable talking about or exploring or, you know, considering. And I just have so much appreciation for authors who can do that. I feel the same way when it comes to artists, when it comes to musicians who are willing to just go into the depths of the darkness and explore that in a true way, in an authentic way. Um, because I don't think that's easy to do. And it's scary. It takes a certain amount of vulnerability, a certain amount of risk. But I don't know. It's something I've always appreciated.
Yeah. It sticks with me when someone does something like that and goes out on a limb. The thing that was maybe captivating about Coetzee's Disgrace was in fantasy, you get to remove it from this world. You're in a secondary world. There's a step away that you're taking a step, you're almost escaping to this other place and these things are happening. And you can make that distinction. To write a story like that in our world, in a real place and time, albeit a fictional story, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't do it. I
Oh, I
certainly wouldn't do
can't.
it. It takes a lot of care to write something like that.
I would be terrified even of what the sensitivity readers would think of me writing something like that. You know what I mean? Like, that's a scary book
It is.
to write.
It is. It is some of the darker parts of humanity. There's no
Yeah.
doubt. Kieran Gill says this. Honestly, I'm much more critical over male authors than female authors. When I know it's a male author, I laser in on how they write women. I'm not so critical on female authors. Am I weird? No, absolutely not. And I think as fantasy readers, this comes from decades. I shouldn't say this fantasy and sci-fi comes from decades of extremely flimsy 2D cardboard cutouts full of stereotypes, female characters. I mean, there's a plethora of that throughout the decades. So I think we have come to maybe expect people to be able to write female characters in a certain way. And just the fact that, there's a ton of male authors out there, but this is also extended out to people like Murakami. Everyone says he can't write a female character to save his life, which then I ask, can you be a great writer if you can't represent that? Like for me, I think I'm leaning towards this side that if you struggle with that, then that is a dent in your armor, essentially.
Yeah. I agree. I think that the bar has been raised pretty high in recent
Mhm.
years as far as how male authors approach female characters. And I'm so impressed with so many male authors, how well they're able to do it. But people say the same thing about John Williams, by the way. They say that he's not able to write female characters. But I thought Edith in Stoner was a fascinating character.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting when you're in like how the author will go about trying to balance what's good and evil, and Stoner, I think, definitely does a lot more work on the back end of trying to get you to empathize with all the characters, and certain times, that's obviously not gonna work. But in Disgrace or something like, honestly, our Scott Baker, it's tough. There's not a ton of redemption there.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Shad says there's no way to completely eliminate bias, and I think that's 100% correct.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. It's impossible. All we can do
Everyone,
is just be more aware of our biases.
yeah, it's acknowledging that there's biases is a huge thing, but it'd be impossible to ever eliminate all
Oh,
biases.
absolutely.
Tolkien was in World War One. Thank you. I
Oh,
messed up.
I
I thought it was
might have
World War
messed that up
One.
too. I might have messed that up too at one point.
I still haven't read the Silmarillion, so I'm a fake fan.
Either. Yeah.
We should
Yeah,
buddy read that to
we
spite.
should. Yeah. I mean, and there
I'm
and
supposed to
the
buddy read it
Andy
with Steve
Serkis
Donahue.
narration is now out too, so
That's what I was waiting on.
mhm.
Steve Donahue wanted to buddy read that with me because he loves it, and he said it would just be amazing to see someone going through for the first time. So, um, I will absolutely have to send him updates. Me and Steve have remained friends since the Dubro episode. It was a
True,
good time.
bro.
One of the most monumental episodes of Chatting with Nuts, by the way, which was funny because you were in the chat in all capital letters saying, "I'm not a dude, bro, and I like stoner. I like
I know.
this."
He's like,
So what?
"No, they're all dude bros and they're all liars if they said they love Stoner." Like, I guess I can't win, you know?
So what is it like being a dude, bro?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. I That is the question, isn't it? As I said, I have no answers tonight, only questions. But I did love Stoner, and I buddy read that with my mother, and she and I, to this day, almost every single time we talk on the phone, it comes up. Like almost every single time. That's how much we both love that book.
Yeah.
And I know Murphy enjoyed that book because we talked about it with her. Grace Dion actually did a vlog reading that book and she loved it. She actually had some wonderful insights on it. Um, yeah, I guess there are a lot of us female dude bros out there. What can I say?
I love the fact that you're able to discuss the books that you read with your mom, and she seems like she's just brilliant.
Oh,
Um,
she is. Yeah.
was she instrumental in getting you to read?
Yes, yes, and the funny thing about that is that when my brother and I were little, because I have 3 siblings, but I have a brother who's 2 years older than me, so we were very close. When when we were very little, she would read to us until we learned how to read. He actually learned to read, I don't know, like 3 years old, I can't remember. But as soon as we learned how to read, she'd have us read to her. And then I think it was when I was in middle school or right or late actually it was late elementary school is when I really fell in love with reading. And I was reading like voraciously and I just wanted to talk about books all the time, even back then. And
Mm.
so I would, instead of reading to her or her reading to me, I would go into her bedroom at night, sit on her bed while she was laying down, and I'd start telling her all about the book I was reading, and I'd be so excited, and then she'd fall asleep. And then I'd get so mad, and I'd say, "You fell asleep." And she'd say, "I'm so," and she'd laugh, and she'd say, "Ah, but your voice is so soothing." And I'm like, "No, but I was talking to the wall for like 15 minutes." And so I had a complex actually for years. I even had a complex when I started my channel because I was like, "Oh, man, I put my mom to sleep when I talked about books back then. Like, am I just gonna put people to sleep if I talk about books online?"
Hey, Library Ladder Bridger over there is making a career of it.
Oh, no,
People,
yeah.
people tell him all the time, "I'm falling asleep to your videos, man. Keep it up." And he's like, "What? I want you to watch these things. What are
Actually,
you
he
doing?"
has a way more soothing voice than I do, so
Oh, yeah, it's
yeah.
crispy. It's beautiful. Um,
He has a very dropped larynx, and yeah, I wish I could do it. If I could hear it in my head right now.
I was gonna say you being a vocal
Oh, yeah.
person, I
I
feel
could
like
feel
you
it. I
can
could
resonate.
feel it when he talks. I could feel the larynx dropping, which creates that depth of space and that baritone quality. And yeah, he has a really beautiful resonant speaking voice.
You should totally talk like that in your videos. I
I
think that subscribe as a double overnight.
I could do some vocal exercises and get there. Yeah.
I some people were talking about my Sansa, and Gil says, "Jimmy, I thought you're dumb. You keep analyzing like a smart person. You got to stay in character." And then Alan, with the best zinger I've ever heard, says, "Sansa represents my desire to get back to a Ned chapter."
Aw. No.
It's literally one of the best of Song of Ice.
Aw.
Oh man.
I loved Sansa. I love all the female characters in a song. I love all the characters in A Song of Ice and Fire. They're so good.
I can't remember that time was September. I'm very curious about what this was in reference to.
That time was September, Joanna. What are you talking about? You have to clarify.
I got so far behind in the chat because we were
Hmm.
going off there for a second. Chadia loved Disgrace, which I'm very happy about. I had a couple people start it and it had to stop, and I was like, I totally get it. Like they're like, I
Yeah.
know too many men like this, and I don't
Yeah.
want to from it. And I'm like, yep, without a doubt. So
His
I totally get it.
characterization was impeccable. That was such a believable character.
All right, I'm gonna be honest, David. He said, Jimmy, I think you would rave over the Gorman Gas novels. I've had so many people recommend these to me, and I tried book one, and I just could not get into it. And it might have been a mood thing. It might have been a time and place thing. I will try it again. I don't know what it was. I don't know. Have you ever tried Gorman Gas?
I tried the first page one day. I tried reading the first page and thought, oh, I think this would take me some time.
Oh yeah, it's not something that 50 pages a day. At least for me, I couldn't do it. I tried to, I think I tried to read it a little bit over like 2 weeks, and I was like, I just can't get into this right now.
I
The
love
writing
the
was beautiful though.
Oh, yeah. And I love the premise too, because I've heard that the house is so much like a character. And I love that idea. I don't know. I'm such a settings person. I think that's one thing I've learned about myself this last year is I am so much more a settings person than I ever thought before. There are exceptions to that, as I learned when we read McCarthy's Sunset Limited, which is all dialogue, and it was brilliant. But for the most part, I just love a good setting. Love it.
Yeah. I love setting a lot. There's also just certain premises that I love, like oh crap. There's a name for it, but like a boxed in setting. I can't remember what it's called. Someone's gonna remind me. I can't remember what it is. But like basically a story that takes place in one setting. So like the Hateful Eight is an example of this. I absolutely love that kind of stuff.
Ooh, I wanna learn what that word
I think
is.
it's canned. I think it's a canned setting, if I'm
So
not
not
mistaken.
not just a contained setting, but a canned setting. Okay.
Yes, but contain works as well.
Mhm.
Those are some of my favorites, and it's like very quiet.
Mm.
There's been so many like weird horror indie movies that have been like that, and I love them every single time.
Mm. That's so fascinating, and because I know that you've said many times to me that you're not a visual reader, but you still get a sense of that atmosphere still? Is it just a feeling thing?
Yeah, and also like other mediums that I've been able. Well, here's the thing. Also, smaller scale is easier to think about. I start thinking about like how far away is this thing from this, and then I get lost in the sauce. Like I can't get out. I'm so
Oh.
far down the rabbit hole, I can't see the beginning or the end, and then I just get flustered and I go, I can't visualize any of this, and I just quit. It's happening to me right now in Republic of Thieves and Liza Lockelmora.
Oh,
I love the
which
setup of the
part?
world. It's so cool. I want the
Yeah.
map on my wall, all that stuff. But when it comes to actually visualizing these places, I'm aloof. I have no idea what any of it looks like.
I was gonna well, I'll be probably reporting this tomorrow, but I am loving this coffee house description in the book. It's a coffee house, fine dining establishment. You
Mm-hmm.
probably already read it because I
Yeah.
think you're ahead of me in the book. Oh, I got so excited. But, I think one thing that works for me too with Lynch's writing, and I've noticed that Martin does this as well when he's writing settings, is that he'll refer to specific numbers, something like a dozen chimneys and 6 dozen people in these long tables. And I don't know, just the word dozen and any sort of numeric reference, for some reason, it grounds my mind and it gives me sense of scale. And then my mind kind of fills it in. I love
That's
that.
so interesting because that's one of the things that I always like get caught up on. And I won't be able to move past the sentence. If you go watch my early Malazan reviews, either Dead House Gates or Gardens of the Moon, I was like, this guy keeps telling me how many feet away the thing is. I don't care. Like, I'm like,
Oh, I
stop
love
telling
it.
me that. But like,
Yeah.
it really bothered me because it would like get me hung up. And I
Yeah.
would just be like, I can't get past this. And I don't know, you know, I don't know exactly why that is. Like, I wish I knew, but I just get hung up on the
Yeah.
specifics.
Well, and I don't even know if I visualize it perfectly. Like sometimes Martin will say something like 50 yards apart or whatever. The flags were 50 yards apart or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm picturing 50 yards, but I have an idea and I'm just going with it. And sometimes I'm surprised how well that works, because I know that when I was reading Farseer, I read, I think it was Royal Assassin and Assassin's Quest. I read it on ebook, but I read the illustrated versions. And so I'd read a description, and then a few pages later, they would show the artist's interpretation of that scene. And I'd be like, that's very aligned with what I was visualizing.
We couldn't
So,
be any more different.
wow.
That's so far removed.
Wow.
Oh God.
So is it like you see fan art, you're like, "Oh, that's so different than what I
Oh,
thought."
sometimes it blows me away. Like I'm like,
Oh,
wow, I wish I saw this in my head. Like that would be amazing. But it does give me a reference. If I can get a reference, I can think of it while I read. Right.
yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of fantasy, especially medieval fantasy, I automatically plug in like a Game of Thrones television show pieces to it. Like
Ah.
it all ends up just looking like that in my head, which kind of sucks because like they're authors taking time to craft these like very unique things. And there are times where I can imagine stuff sometimes. And those are I always comment on them in reviews because for me, that's like an achievement unlocked. And
Mm,
it honestly makes me excited because it's just
yeah.
an experience I don't get to have all the time. Uh, Alan says, "Hey, anyone want to bunny read the user license agreement for an EA game while they read the Silmarillion and see who falls asleep first?" Oh God.
I'll just go ahead and mention, if this is shaming me for buddy reading something with you, uh,
Of course it is.
well, I'm just gonna go ahead and say, I watched your TBR the other day, Alan, and there was no mention of the buddy read we had talked about for December, which was The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. We talked about it, no mention of it.
Alan's going to read a female
And
author. He literally just read some Janie
Ooh.
Wards.
That's true.
I like to continue to perpetuate that Alan hates women. I think it's very funny, even though it's probably not.
I have a question for you though. So I know that you said that you don't visualize as much, but do you hear voices like when we're reading the dialogue, are
Hmm.
you able to almost
Yes.
imagine the voices? Yeah.
I hear audiobook narrators, even if they aren't narrating the audiobook and I'm reading it. Like Michael Page is forever stuck in my mind. Forever. I I love Michael Page. I'm listening to
So
Republic of Thieves. He might be my favorite audiobook narrator. He's
oh,
so good.
he's so good. He's so good. Yeah. No, I'm actually very impressed. I feel like I'm pretty good at that too. I'm pretty good at hearing the voices, even just hearing sounds when I'm reading if I'm not using the audiobooks. But Michael Page just takes it to the next level. Oh, thank you so much, Murphy. Sorry, Murphy just gave me a compliment on my voice being soothing.
And Kai said Bridger is the melatonin of booktube, which I know you mean that endearingly, but I could see it being to be clear, we love Bridger here.
Oh,
We love
yeah.
what he does. But honestly, the melatonin of booktube is a pretty awesome title.
Melatonin is a wonderful hormone that helps you sleep. Why not?
Johanna said there was a time that I read a bunch of really dark books as if it was from the Roaring '20s.
I love my Roaring 20s time. No, I what I meant by that is that I used to say, like, um, I used to I think the way I would express my taste at the time, which is not saying that I was lying by any means, but I would say, "I love books that are grim dark because that means the stakes are real." That's kind of the way I would generically talk about books, and it was true to what I felt at the time. And not saying I don't feel that way totally now, but I would add to it. I would say, "I don't think I like books just because they're grim or dark." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think
I've
there's
bounced
more
off
to it. Let's
plenty of
not
grim dark books and sat them
Mhm.
down. One author that does write grim dark that I'm kind of interested in is Adrian Selby. He wrote The Winter Road, and I hear him
Oh,
compared
yeah.
to Joe Abercrombie, and people even talk about a bit of a McCarthy spin on The Winter Road. And he wrote Brother Red, I think, or Red Brother or something like that. Mark from Slowly Read liked it. So I've always wanted to try it out. I finally ordered The Winter Road, and I'm hoping to get to it maybe in 2024. I have like a million things I got to read, so who knows? But there's still some of the stuff out there. But I have started a lot of the darker, like 11 Cycle, for instance, and I was like, absolutely not. Um, Jared wants to know, Joanna, if you have read David Mitchell. To Alan's response being, "Oh my gosh, Jared, no." I'm going to defend this real quick. David Mitchell is not popular. Like he is go look at him on Goodreads. He's in the same boat as like Daniel Abraham and KJ Parker, where his books all have like 3.5 stars because people just think he's, boring or long-winded or crap. And then there's people who really, really love his stuff. So he is still a kind of a, he's nominated for a lot of awards. He never wins them. But I don't think that he's like overly popular. So Alan, you should be fine with David Mitchell. He's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Well, honestly, I did buy The Bone Clocks. Is that what it's called?
Mhm.
I bought that book because of you. So
Let's go.
and I'm
I
going to
think-
be buddy reading that with Laura from Fantasy Awash. We're talking about maybe February. So
Well, by the way, bottle episode, not canned episode, bottle episode or bottle story is the contained. That's the phrasing. Bottle episode. Thank you,
Oh.
Dark One's Taint, which is a hilarious name. David Mitchell is awesome. Joanna would definitely enjoy. So the thing that you're going to like about David Mitchell, Joanna, is that he is very musically inclined, and he actually has a playlist in the back of the Bone Clocks that inspired a lot of the scenes that he writes. So he literally gives you like what was on his iPod as he was writing, and you can listen to the soundtrack of the book.
I can't wait. Yeah. That does have me sold. But yeah, that was another one. And that was a very precise recommendation again. So thank you. But yeah, that was when you definitely reached out and said, Joanna, you would love this. So I bought it. I know Laura from Fantasy Awash is interested. So we're going to buddy read that together. Probably have a discussion at some point too.
Yeah, I think you're definitely going to love it. I would recommend reading Slade House somewhat soon after it because they kind of have a little bit of connections there. But I'm going to be reading Ghost Written very soon, like within the next month or two for sure. He's easily an author that I'm putting in the priority column from now.
Wow. And I think that Jared said something. Is he fantasy? Or
David Mitchell?
Is he considered fantasy?
Yeah, he's considered urban fantasy or magical realism. So, and in my video, I said that it happens in our world, which I was then corrected by David Mitchell superfan Fallen Adam. Then he said, actually, technically, it's like an alternate reality that's like our world. So it's not exactly our world, but like for all intents and purposes, let's just pretend it's our world. So I would classify it as urban fantasy, most likely.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really curious about it because I think Jared had mentioned him as being a blend between kind of literary fiction and fantasy. So I think that's something I could get behind.
Yeah, he definitely bridges that gap for sure. In fact, he's such a good writer that bookstores will put him in the literary section and not put him in the fantasy section, but he could easily be categorized in the fantasy section. Sam M has a comment, says, Jimmy, does the cannibalism in Book of the New Sun pay off? I don't know because I haven't finished it yet. I'm reading book 3 right now. And I am loving it, but I'm reading it very slow. I would love to finish it in December, but with all the other reads I have pledged, I don't know if I'll get it finished, but I would really like to because I'm enjoying it. And Murphy, I didn't say anything bad about Republic of Thieves is awesome. Nothing negative about that at all. It's great.
You did say something about the setting kind of being off-putting in Republic.
Oh no, I like the setting. I just can't imagine it, is what I'm trying to say. It's my fault. Like I all these descriptions of this place, and I'm like, I have no idea what this looks like. So it's a me problem, not a book problem.
I remember struggling with that because I was like thinking that I know that Jimmy is not somebody who visualizes what he reads, but before you read Red Seas Under Red Skies, book 2 in that series, I was so excited for you to read it because there's a casino on an island.
Are you saying I'm a degenerate gambler?
I was thinking it's like Vegas on an island. Well, you like Vegas, right? It had me so excited. I was just so excited about that setting. And
it worked.
It
I did end up loving it. Hey, Baron, what's up? Good to see you, man. Your brain on books. Love to see it.
Yes.
What is it called? I'm pretty open with. Okay. I thought someone was mentioning this. So Moki D says, I'm surprised you didn't mention the blatant Deus Ex Machina that completely killed the tension in Republic of Thieves. Well, I don't think if there is one, we haven't got there yet because we haven't finished it. We're still reading it. I'm on chapter 5. I think Joanna is.
That's where I am.
Oh, is that where you are? Oh, you caught up to me. I got to read.
I think so. Let me double check.
I got to read faster. Dang it.
Are you trying to stay ahead of me? Are we in a race? I'm in chapter 5.
Isn't that what buddy reads are all about? Is claiming dominance over the book?
Oh, goodness. I guess. I will lose, but you wanna play it that way. It'll be no fun
Reading,
because 'cause I'm just already a loser.
you're not a loser.
I mean,
Yeah.
as far as, like, my reading speed,
Oh,
as
okay.
far
I
as
was like,
trying to keep up.
it's like I'm the self, loathing one here. Jeez. There can only be one. That's not a good balance for the show if we're both hating ourselves. Reading with Rebecca Nicole says, I sometimes skim descriptions because I'm not going to visualize it anyways. Um,
Mm,
I always read them and then just get frustrated, and then I try to move on.
mhm. Yeah. I know that there are exercises to work through that, but I understand. People read for a different reason. I don't think it has I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's made me feel conflicted learning about this topic because it's certainly the case that a lot of people out there do not visualize what they read. But as far as the people who don't visualize what they read, some people could still really enjoy descriptions, even if they don't visualize them, even just if they evoke some kind of emotion or feeling, or if they enjoy the flow of the sentence, the use of alliteration. I don't know. So it's kind of a tricky topic.
Yeah, I think it really is.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm getting a couple of disconnects. I don't know if it's my internet or your internet, but
Oh
sometimes
no.
it's cutting out and I'm not getting everything you said, but um I'm trying to piece together what that last section was.
I wonder if I should
Oh,
change my settings.
oh, you're okay. I Speaking of like improving visualization, I can't speak. I have tried music. I've tried looking up settings of what it's placed in. I actually did this with Guy Gavriel Kay's books because I know it was set in a place and time. So I actually went and looked it up, but I just could not visualize no matter what I did. And then I'm stuck on this, and then it starts to really affect my enjoyment of the book because now I'm trying to do this other thing, and it can be a real damper on the experience. And then I end up not getting through any books because I get frustrated, which kind of sucks.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry about my internet speed, by the way. I think it is on my end. I could
It's
try to
okay.
change something, but it would change my camera setting for a second. I don't know if
Well,
you would want me to
it's
try
totally
that.
up to you. We're good either way. We're
Oh,
live. We do this on the
okay.
fly. It's not a big deal.
If it becomes too much of a hindrance, please let me know and I will try something to correct
Okay.
it.
It's
Yeah.
all yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Ben says, "Did Cornwell get you at visualizing a warlord? He's one of the best at setting scenes for you." So you read Warlord. Did you feel that
Mm.
way about his scene setting?
I think yeah. Yeah. I did. Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
I definitely did not. I mean, I enjoyed them, but I didn't visualize any. Not even a little bit. I could imagine a shield wall because that they did it like a million times.
Yeah.
So I uh I definitely know what that looks like, but
No, I didn't. I was able to visualize things. I do remember him talking quite a bit about terrain and how he would describe the specifics about the terrain and how that would affect the battle scenes,
mhm.
um, the amount of armor. I'm trying to remember specific things. I did visualize things. I now visuals are coming back to my memory. Yes.
I've heard that from other people too, that they feel like that's the case. And I'm kind of the odd one out, unfortunately. um, Kaisera
Yeah.
says, "Did
That's
Jimmy stop
okay.
reading Jenny Wirtz? I remember you being on a read along for it." Yeah, I did drop from that group, and I'm not currently reading Words of Light and Shadow. I don't have time for the read along, honestly, and I found those books to be extremely demanding of my time, and that's not a bad thing, but I simply just couldn't do it anymore. And we had waited so long for that read along to start. That was probably the biggest issue, honestly, is being a year after when we said we were going to read it. And I had actually, marked time out for it. And then by the time we had read it, I hadn't really factored it in because I honestly never believed it was going to happen. Uh, so
Yeah.
it just ended up not working out. But Joanna, you're still doing the read along with A Critical Dragon and Philip. How's it going?
Um, I'm in book 4 right now, and honestly, book 4 is starting a new arc in the series, so it's an 11-book series, and the first 3 books, well, 3 or 4 books depending on which set you have. If you have the mass market paperbacks, it's the first 4 books. If you have the hardback editions, it's the first 3 books. those 4 books, whatever you want to say, 3 to 4 books are the first arc of the series. And then book 4, where I'm at right now, is starting a new arc. And I will say this, it is taking its time to build things up. And so it has taken me some time to read that book. I'm not finished with it yet. Um, but there are some interesting things that are being set up, and I'm just gonna reserve my judgment completely until I finish the book, but I do have some thoughts.
Cool. Are you guys doing one book a month or every 2
Mm.
months?
It's like every 2 months, but really it's sometimes every 3 months. So I
Yeah,
think in
I
this
mean,
case
those
it might
books
be.
take a time.
They
They really
do.
do. I mean, there's a lot going on there. There's a ton of world building. The magic is very surreal. Um, it's certainly a challenge. I mean, if people are up for that kind of thing, definitely give it a shot. And then you have these read along folks that are doing these videos, which is always a lot of fun. I miss that. I miss the Malazan videos I did, and part of me just wants to read Malazan again and do it all over again.
Yeah. So
But
fun.
it'd be hard not to spoil things further on in the series now that I have the context. Like I thought about going, so I don't have a spoiler discussion for Dead House Gates or Memories of Ice, I think. And I thought about maybe going back and doing them because I feel like the series is incomplete on my channel. But unfortunately, I feel like if I do it, I will spoil things for people later on. It would be almost impossible not to talk about the later happenings of the series.
Honestly, I think that that's the benefit without giving anything away. I kinda think that's the big benefit of rereading Melatin is knowing where things go at the end and then bringing that context into your reread. So I don't know if it would work as well if you were just, if you were trying to reread it and not spoil things.
Yeah, I think it would be kind of tough
Mm.
to keep it limited to that one book. John Smith says, Jimmy and Joanna, have you read Tori Tekken's book? As Alan would say, the Bloodstones. I have not, but I am interested in it. Joanna, I believe you have an arc of it. Did
I
you?
do. It was so kind of Tori to offer me an arc, and so, of course, I accepted because Tori's a good friend. She did tell me that there is no pressure as to when I read it, and so I'm really looking forward to getting to it eventually, but I'm not exactly sure when I'm gonna have time to get to it, but I will get to it eventually, and I've heard great things. It seems like it's received a lot of warm reception so far.
Yeah, it seems like people are really enjoying it, which is great. I've seen some people that have been tough on other books that I thought they would like, so I was very interested to see their opinions, and they were very high on it. So I'm super happy for Tori. She was a guest on Chagrin Nuts, obviously, and I consider her a friend. So congrats to Tori for releasing another book, because she had phased as well, and now she's going off into adult epic fantasy, and people seem to be enjoying it that are picking up, which is really great. David Sloan says that Adrian Selby will make my staph infection worse. So maybe I won't read The Winter
Oh, goodness.
Road. And then Alan is clarifying that he's not saying that David Mitchell is popular, but Jared is about to get Joanna to read a book tomorrow, which is what upset. Kai says he reads
Sounds like you're
all.
getting in trouble too.
Yes. Hey, listen, Alan, I'll catch up with the chat when I feel like it. This is my show. Okay. This isn't sprinting with Alan. Okay. This is the big leagues. No, I'm just kidding. When's the Parker read, Joanna? Well, we are trying to get her to read The Folding Knife because
I mean, Jimmy just sold it to me, Alan. He just said that the first chapters are amazing.
it is so good. And it's hard to say that whenever you're only like 3 to 4 chapters in, but like I message Alan in all capital letters after I think chapter 2, and I was like, "What? Like what is going on? This is crazy." And he's like, "Yes, that's right." There's already a ton of like movement of pieces going around, and I can tell it's going to be like economics because Alan told me that. But the interesting thing is like in chapters 1 and 2, the main character like grows up. Like you see him as a child, and then by the time you get in, I think he's in his 20s and like having kids, and you're like, oh wow, we grew up like that. But it worked really well because some of the material was dry, but because we're like moving ahead in time so fast, it felt entertaining to me. Like I didn't really want to put it down, and it keeps kind of calling to me, kind of like Beartown is right now. Every time I have like a second and I'm looking over, I'm like, I should be reading this, but I kind of want to read this because I also started Brother by Ania something, which is one of the patron picks, and it is set in West Virginia, and it's kind of like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre type deal. It's actually pretty good, but it's on my Kindle, so it's a little harder to pick up. I
Wow.
always pick up my physical
How
books.
many books are you reading right now?
A lot, 5. So Sword of the Lictor, but I'm not even really actively reading it right now. I got to clear out some. Brother, Republic of Thieves, Bear Town, and The Folding Knife. So I'm reading 5 books right now, but I'm reading them like 20 pages at a time. Republic of Thieves is the main read because honestly, I'm just like I'm liking everything I'm reading, and that's awesome. I'm so happy. But Republic of Thieves, because we're all reading it together, I'm trying to stay up to date on it so I don't fall behind, even though Murphy's already read it before, but I know you're reading it for the first time too.
Yeah, it's been so much fun so far. I've laughed out loud so many times. I feel like
Baron
Lynch is amazing.
Baron says he has a DNF record with Mitchell. So I assume Baron hates David Mitchell. So there we go. There's someone that is against David Mitchell.
5 people. The other person I'm also curious about is I'm trying to think of the name. I'm gonna blank on the name, but somebody had recommended a book to you in your live chat in your last live show. It was Never Let Me Go. You heard that book before?
I'm pretty sure I added it to my if someone recommends me something, I generally add it to my list.
I don't think I really wanna read Never Let Me Go because I kind of know what happens, and so it'd kind of be I don't know. I know
Oh
that
God.
you know
It says
you know what?
anguish is one of the descriptors.
Wow. I can't remember the author's name. If anybody can say what it
I
is.
can't believe you're trying to get me to pronounce this. All right, so it's Kazuo Ishiguro.
Maybe that's why I couldn't
Why would you
remember.
do this to me?
I've heard such great things about this author, though. So I kind of want to pick up one of his books or their books. I'm not sure what pronoun they use, but I keep hearing great things. Am I cutting out again?
No. I'm
Okay.
reading this description. I mean, it sounds kind of interesting, but when I see the word anguish, maybe I'll have to extraordinary twist. I don't know. Now I sounds really interesting. I kind of want to read it.
Yeah.
We should buddy read this and not invite Alan.
Oh, no. I actually already know what the twist is. I accidentally got spoiled for it, but I am curious. I'm curious about this author. I'll say that.
Interesting. Matt says, wait, so Jimmy, if you draw a picture, do you visualize it as you are drawing? I don't draw pictures.
Not at all?
Not at all. Let's
Yeah.
see. Also, hey, Slay, thank you so much for the 10 spot. I'm sorry it took so long to get this. It's nice to see you on here again, Johanna. Gonna have to catch this episode on replay, unfortunately, working on wrapping up my dissertation. Well, hey, good luck.
Yes, congratulations on your dissertation. I hope that the defense goes well.
Yeah, I know that that's a lot of work and very stressful. I mean, you had that experience, right, Johanna?
I did. Yeah. It was a lot of work. It was.
Was it terrifying?
It was terrifying. Yeah. Yeah. I actually give a tip to a lot of people when they're going into that kind of situation because I realized right before my defense, I knew I was going to be nervous and I knew there was no way that I could just wish the anxiety to go away. So I gave myself the tip that I don't have to expect the anxiety to go away. All I have to do is relax a little. And if relaxing a little means I relax my pinky finger, that means I made progress.
Hmm.
So when I was sitting in my defense, that's what I did. I just focused on what can I relax just a little bit? Can I relax a little bit? And I'd relax maybe just a pinky. Can I relax my wrist? And if I could just do something that tiny, I noticed my whole body just grounded a little bit more
Hmm.
and I was able to think a little bit more clearly. The other tip, and this came actually from one of my professors who was on my defense, actually on my committee, and he said that, and I'm doing it right now actually, but he said, don't cross your legs when you're in an interview or in a stressful situation. Try to keep your legs uncrossed because for whatever reason, if we have our legs crossed, we don't think as clearly as when we have both feet on the ground. It helps us ground and center better. So I'd followed that tip as well, and it all
I
went
don't know if I
okay.
buy that.
I think there's something to it. I really do.
I don't know. Like 2
I
feet on the
think there
ground,
is.
you're like centered with the earth. We're getting in the namaste levels of
No.
lunacy.
No, he was actually a really I think he actually had some research to back this up, and he was a researcher, like a very well published, well established researcher. So I think he
I
actually did have some research to back this up.
I cross my legs because when I sit too long, my sciatic nerve starts hurting,
Oh, well,
pinching. So
then,
I cross my leg to stretch my hip.
yeah.
So you tell him I said, no, I'm just kidding.
Well, I do know, like, I spent some time observing classrooms and with kids, and I did notice that, like, some kids in some classrooms, when they were all over the chairs, not saying that they weren't good learners, but I did notice that they didn't, pay attention as well as some of the kids that were sitting with both feet flat on the ground. So I did wonder if there was something to it. I don't know.
So would you say you have a bias against people who cross their legs?
Yeah.
Small.
Like we said earlier, everybody has biases. No, I'm just joking. I just had my legs crossed, so for what it's worth.
I crossed mine as we were talking,
Yeah. Okay.
just to be a rebel.
I do it all the time, so
The wild card, Steve Donahue, is here, and he says, "True story. The disconnects are my fault. The disconnects have disappeared at this point. So I guess Steve has blessed us with a good connection. I appreciate it, Steve."
gosh. Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Tanner is saying, "Is it just a blank void in your mind? Is this just confined to reading? What about memories or anything?" I'm genuinely asking. No, I have no problem
Mm.
with memories, though. I can't remember people's faces. And antiphasia. People have diagnosed me before in the chat with it. Maybe that's a thing, but I have a really hard time remembering people's faces, even family members. But I do remember like places and time and memories and stuff. But when I read, I just see the pictures, or not pictures, but the words on the page, pretty
Would
much.
Are your dreams pretty vivid or
Yeah, my dreams are pretty vivid and they're always terrifying.
oh my
I
gosh.
have all bad dreams. Like always it's bad. I've never had a good dream. They're all nightmares.
Jimmy, have you ever done virtual reality?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my husband just got the MetaQuest 3, the new virtual reality headset thing. And I've been recently doing it and it's so scary sometimes. It is terrifying because you see things, I don't know, it's almost like you could see further out your periphery. It's the wildest thing. That thing has given me the most crazy dreams ever.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I embrace the VR AR revolution. Like the day where I can just on my glasses pull up my ebook, like tap and my ebook be there so like I can act like I'm paying attention to something and actually be reading. Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be fantastic.
There's a game I've been enjoying on there. I'm actually really sore right now in my
Beat Saber?
arms. It's called let's see. I wrote this down. Les Mills Body Combat. It's like this Australian couple, and they guide you, and there's these things coming at you, and you punch them, and you kick, and it's awesome. And it doesn't feel like a workout, but I sweat so hard by the end, and my muscles get so sore, and I feel all powerful and pumped, but it's so much fun. I
I
love it.
mean, I'm all about exercise and getting pumps and all that. So, I mean,
Yeah,
that's cool, getting people active. I've just always thought about how how much more reading I could get done if I could just like cast a book on a wall or something. Like in the doctor's office, I know a lot of people read on their phone, but I don't tend to do that often.
I hate
Um,
that.
but I would definitely look forward to that. Steve Donahue says the reason most descriptive passages stink is because most writers are really, really untalented at writing.
That sounds like such a Steve response to that.
Yeah, we know your account's not hacked. Sam asks if Gene Wolfe or Patrick Rothfuss was able to get me to visualize stuff. Gene Wolfe, yes. There were times where I could kind of see what he was going for, and sometimes he would have me imagining things that were not what they appeared to be, which was one of the best experiences of reading Shadow of the Torture, which I'm still just like marveling over that book. I really did love it.
Was that the one with the play in it?
That was book 2.
Oh, okay.
I still don't know what happened.
Okay.
I don't know. I've had people explain it to me. I've watched videos and I'm just like, you know what? It's okay. I don't have to understand it. It's fine. If you like plays, though, I encourage you to read Book of the New Sun.
Yeah.
There's an
I
entire
think
scene.
that I think Rothfuss, I mean, it's been so many years since I've read those books, but I did think that he was good at writing visual scenes.
I feel like I remember like being able to visualize the inn pretty well whenever I read that, but inns are pretty standard fare, right? They're not like I don't remember anything specific about it, but I do remember there being an inn. So
Yeah. Yeah.
getting caught up on the chat here. There's a lot of people saying they'll get to Malazan in 2035. That's a good goal. And also there's people saying that Tori Tekken's book Bloodstones, very good.
I haven't heard a single review that hasn't said, it's good, because people have been enjoying it a lot.
Maybe you'll be the one.
That scares me. I don't want to be the one. I want to love it.
How do you feel whenever you know someone and you read their book? Like knowing that's a possibility.
That's scary. You don't want to not like a book that from somebody you know.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. I will only read their books if I feel like they will be okay with me being 100% transparent with them, right?
Yeah.
Which is why I was able to read Philip's book, and book 2 I had issues with, but I know I can look Philip right in the eyes and say these things, and there's still love there, and
it's so true though. Philip is the one person I trust to say I did not like this, and he'll still be my friend. Well, I'm hoping Tori will feel the same if I don't like her book. It could happen, but I'm hoping I'll like it.
I almost felt like people thought, hey, Philip's such a nice guy. I know he's not going to get mad at me. So this is my opportunity to throw some digs his way. I'm going to just twist the knife a little bit and it'll all be okay. And look at me being crude to my friend. That's certainly what I was doing. No, I'm just kidding.
He might have primed me a little bit though, to be honest, because he's been calling me an elf for a long time. And then he wrote elves so well in his books. So,
well, I think it's a tribute to you.
There you go. How could I not love that? I did love those elf scenes so much.
They were good. His elves are very strong. Some of my favorite elves.
Definitely.
Kaisera says, Jimmy, I might be misremembering, but did you have an Iron Council by China Mieville review? I recall seeing a thumbnail, or was I hallucinating? You, in fact, did hallucinate that. I did not review the Iron Council. I liked it a lot. I liked it just about as much as Perdido, with The Scar still being my favorite of the 3 Baslag novels. But I did not review the book. But talk about a weird story. That certainly is up there with some of the weirdest, a lot of the metaphysical stuff that Mieville's known for.
Which book is that in the series? Is that book? Yeah, what series is that?
It's book 3. So it's the Baslag series by China Mieville, and it's book 3. It has a lot to do with revolutions and a lot of really good things for it to say, to be honest with you.
I still have not read that author. But...
Oh, you gotta.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mieville is also like Mitchell, where he's not commercially very viable, but critically he's been pretty acclaimed, and he gets stuck in different sections of the bookstore. He's written a lot of nonfiction stuff. He's a admitted communist as well, so people don't like that, but I think that he is a brilliant writer, and he knows his way around a sentence for sure.
Yeah. Are you compiling a list again for this next year of authors that you want to get to, like you did for this year?
Oh, real quick, Paul, I never had an Anubis Gates review. I never posted one. Unless if you're thinking about in my wrap up, I do sometimes take wrap ups down a month or 2 after, just to declutter the channel up a little bit. Plus, I don't think anyone's going back and be like, what did Jimmy read in May 2022? I'm very curious. So sometimes I will take those down, but ask me your question again. I'm sorry. List of authors. Sorry.
Yeah.
So list of authors. So my goal for 2024 is to keep my commitments as low as possible. I got to every single book I said I was going to get to this year, except for Outpost by Michael W. Gear, which is a sci-fi kind of book. I still plan on reading it. It just didn't happen this year, but I committed myself to way too much stuff this year. I think I picked 8 books to read, 5 authors to try. And then a lot of those were series beginning. And then I feel this pressure to finish these things. I don't think that's something I'm going to worry about this year. I may pick three authors possibly, and I don't know who they will be, that I want to try for the very first time this year. I know one of them will probably be Mary Gentle, I think is her name. I'm going to just double check this to make. Yeah, Mary Gentle. She wrote Ash, A Secret History, which you can get as a big omnibus, and it was written back in 2000. And it's one of those stories that's kind of been forgotten, but it's a historical text that's found, and then the person is going through it. Sounds extremely trippy. So that's one of the ones that might be on that list, almost for sure would be. And then also Julian May, who wrote The Many Colored Land. That's a series that I'm very keen to read. I'd have to think. I'll have
Gosh, I
to
have
see.
not heard of these authors. I might have heard of Mary Gentile. That might be
I've been in the trenches trying to find some weird stuff. It's
that's
like
awesome. I love that.
yeah, I've been reading like, different stuff. A lot of the new wave stuff is also on my radar, of course. So I'm just trying to build up things that I think sound interesting that I haven't tried before. It's kind of my goal. And I'm going to do the ever elusive mood reading, hopefully, for most of the year.
Yeah, mood reading is wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't do that as much this last year. I feel like I did a better job of that the year before. I just kept picking up books on a whim. And every time I do that, it surprisingly goes so well for me. So I really need to do that more.
Yeah. So, what authors are you looking forward to getting
Oh, there's
to?
so many. There's so many. One that immediately comes to mind is one that I know you've read, and that's Lois McMaster Bujold.
Joel, Curse of Chalion.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
going to
I
love it.
think that's the one I want to read. She also read some sci-fi as well, and I've been just falling a little bit down a sci-fi rabbit hole. So that's something I'm curious about. And then another one. There's a couple of other female authors that were on my list. I'm trying to remember. Hmm. Well, I do wanna read Book of the New Sun. I may have a buddy read planned for that, but I need to touch base with the people about it and see if that's really going on or not, because we haven't talked about it in a long time. So it's possible I could be starting Book of the New Sun this next year, but I'm not totally sure.
I would be
Yeah.
curious to see what you think of Book of the New Sun. I think there's going to be like me and you discussing it. We'll have a really good time. Uh,
Yay.
I definitely think you'll like Curse of Chalion. I've actually thought about more about Curse of Chalion since I finished it. I think I gave it 4 stars, and I was kind of like, I liked it, but I was kind of expecting a little bit more from it because all the Hob comparisons and whatnot. But the more I think about it, the like and the way she like put it together and the payoff, I'm like, man, that was a really good book. And I really want to read the other books that she has in that, but also her sci-fi, which Murphy was reading one in her most recent reading vlog. And I was like, I had no idea that you're reading Bejoled. That's awesome.
Yeah. I didn't
Just
either. I saw that too, and actually I asked in her comments about where I mentioned that I've been curious about Bejeweled, and I just don't know where to start because she's such a prolific author. What was that comment? I'm sorry.
oh, people are just saying that Never Let Me Go is like a must read. I should read it. It'll make me sad. The twist actually isn't that important. It's like 30% into the book. So
Oh, okay.
people are
Yeah.
saying that I should definitely read it. So I'll order it today.
Cool.
I don't know when I'll
Yay.
read it, but I'll order it.
Yeah. Well, let me know. Maybe I could check it out from the library or something, the audiobook or something. But yeah, I've been curious about Bejeweled, and actually somebody commented for me. They commented a suggestion of where to start, and including, of course, the book, The Curse of the Challion. I think that's the one I'm most curious about because it's fantasy, but I'm also curious about her sci-fi. But my goodness, she is so prolific. So every time I've looked into her series, it's not just a 3-book series for most of her books. It seems like she goes on quite a bit.
Yeah, and she's wrote a lot of novellas, in that
Mm.
I think it's The Five Warrior Gods. Is that what it's called? I know people are gonna be like, "No, that's not what it's called," but whatever her fantasy series, is. I would like to read more from it. I've heard Paladin of Souls is excellent. I also
Mm.
went on Bridger's book auction, whatever he was on Whatnot, and I bought, like, 3 first edition hardbacks, and the covers are so, like, old school fantasy-esque, and I just love them. Like, I love them. I felt like her level of like fantastical elements were more congruent with something like Guy Gavriel Kay than Robin Hobb. I actually felt more Guy Gavriel Kay vibes from her than Robin Hobb vibes. That's just my personal opinion. I asked Jake Bishop what he thought, and he said, I can kind of see it, though I don't make that connection. So I don't think I'm super off base with that. But
Well, I guess
I,
he would know, huh?
yeah,
Having read so much Hobb and so much K. Yeah.
yeah, he's definitely the he's definitely the Guy Gavriel Kay aficionado. Well, actually I'll take that back. Bridger is also up there. Those
Mhm.
two can battle it out on a stream one day to see who likes him more. But you read Song for a Bond, which I told you would be a home run.
You were right. You absolutely hit it out of the park with that recommendation. I must say, I loved that book. I absolutely loved that book. Uh, I'm so in love with Kay's writing. I was very tempted the other day to pick up Tigana, though I know you weren't crazy about that book. And actually, I've heard of quite a few people who are not crazy about Tigana, but I do own it. So I think that might be my next K book. And I think I've been doing some discussions on his books. I did one for Lions of Alrasan and then A Song for a Bone, with Jacob and with Laura and with Josh from Red Fairy Books. So I think that group wants to get together again for Dagana, but that's the challenge is like, what if I just want to pick it up on a whim?
Yeah. Yeah. Tagana is one of those ones that I feel like everybody. See, you're saying you hear a lot of people not like it. I feel like everybody loves it, and I'm the weirdo. So don't listen to me. I did Murphy's Sanderson video where I got talking about Guy Gavin okay, and I just did that was a joke. I would kind of pan Tagana, like just joking around, and people were like, "This guy's an idiot." I'm like, ah, come on, guys. I love his other books. The Corn Swords just didn't do it for me. I'm sorry.
Corn Swords. Okay.
It's something else. Sam says, Jimmy, read Neil Gaiman. I have.
I was
Ocean
going
at
to
the End of the Lane.
say,
It's fantastic.
I love that book.
Yeah. It's just one of those authors. I've read one from him, and I feel like he's always going to be there. So like I'll pick him up when I want to, kind of deal. But I should probably make a priority at least to read American Gods because I know Philip really enjoys that.
I DNF'd that book so many years ago. And I need to get back to it.
Dang. Actually, Sam says you'd love American Gods.
I have a weird relationship with American Gods because it was gifted to me many, many, many years ago. And I tried it and I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't get into it. At the time, I felt like there were just so many references that were going over my head about Norse mythology and other kinds of mythology. But the thing that makes me feel so conflicted about it is that ever since then, I don't think there is a more popular fantasy book among my friends and family outside of BookTube.
Yeah.
Like my brother loves that book. My uncle just went on and on gushing about that book one night at dinner. And the man is an introvert. He never talks, but he would not stop gushing about American Gods.
I heard the TV show was also very good, at least the first season of it. I never watched it, but I remember seeing before I even knew it was a book. I was like, God, that sounds really interesting. But that is one of those books that I think in the general population is extremely popular. Gaiman is that guy. I mean, he is very popular.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've enjoyed some other books. I read Stardust and Good Omens. I have Sleeper in the Spindle. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed one of the what's it called? Sandman graphic novels. I enjoy his writing style. He's great.
Yeah, I Ocean at the End of the Lane had just a vibe to it that I really enjoyed, and I did like his writing style as well. I will say this about Neil Gaiman. Besides Ocean at the End of the Lane, none of his premises jump off the page to me. And I think that's why I struggle to pick one of his books up. It's not because I'll probably enjoy it, but none of his premises are so strong in my like what I like, my taste, that I'm like, oh, like I gotta read this. You know, it's like, oh, well, whenever I feel like doing a road trip with American God, maybe I'll do it. Possibly, maybe, never. I don't know. But eventually I will do it. Jared says Tagana is in his top 10. Looks like I need to fight somebody. I know. I'm the worst.
I will try it out.
I didn't hate it. I really thought his other stuff was far better.
Corn Swords are cool.
I think that is the popular opinion for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely look forward to reading more K for sure.
Yeah. Do you feel like Song for Our Bonds is going to be in that top 3?
Wrong contender.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
I started thinking about it because I realized I try not to think about my top 10 too much, because then like I don't want to have preconceived notions when I make the list, but like I have an idea of like what's going to make my list. And I realized I'm like, man, it's December 8th. Like I got to get moving because that video takes a little bit longer to film and to edit and stuff. And I'm like, I guess it's time to start picking books. And half of my books might not be fantasy and sci-fi. And I'm like, I'm going to get canceled on my own channel for not having all fantasy. Last year I didn't either, but it was like 1 or 2. I think this year there's a chance that maybe 4 or 5 of the books are going to be other genres. Like
I think it's going to be the same for me too. I think it's going to be the same for me too. Just thinking about some of the books.
You don't have fantasy in your channel name. You're fine. I am the fantasy network.
That's true. You got to do something about that.
I know.
You do succeed though in reading a fair amount of fantasy. I must say, I was laughing because in your last wrap up, you were saying You were talking about all of these grandma books and literary fiction books. And then you were saying, "Oh, well, I did have to read some fantasy," but you did. You managed to read a lot of fantasy in addition to grandma books and literary fiction and disgrace.
My hope is that I can get at least one fantasy reader to read a grandma book with me. That's all I want in life. I just want someone to read Barbara Kingsolver and enjoy it. Which, by the way, I called her Barbara King's Lover for like a month before someone corrected me. So I'm glad I got that out, fixed that before the wrap up. The whole dyslexia thing's making more sense as I go through life.
I don't notice these things, so it might make sense for me too. Who knows? Yeah.
It's Bex's birthday. Do you want to sing happy birthday to Bex, Johanna?
Oh, that is so mean.
You're a singer.
I'm not gonna sing along. Happy
Save
birthday.
it. Yeah, we'll save it because we're gonna do booktube Christmas choir led by Alan, and we're gonna do carols for Christmas.
And we're singing the Reigns of Castamere, right? Weren't you wanting to put
that is a video
like
I've thought about making for a very long time. But that would require me to coordinate and then sing on camera, and that's just simply not going to happen. So I do jingles in my podcasts, though. Like for certain sections of like Lost in Roshar, I will like jingle an intro, and it's always terrible.
Yeah, you should have Bobby B sing something sometime.
Well, he did whenever I filmed the tip. Have you seen it? The Misbehaving? Of course you have. You've had to see it.
I probably did. I can't remember now. I'm sorry.
You
I watch all your videos. I don't remember though.
You just got caught, Johanna. That's what you said.
I can't win. I'm in trouble with everyone now.
Gavin reads it all, says all books are fantasy, even the contemporary one. It's all made up. Unless it's nonfiction, I guess. Yes, nonfiction is gross. We don't read nonfiction. You're not welcome. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm currently reading a nonfiction. Yeah.
I am next year. That is what, if I'm already going back on no commitments, I am going to read at least 4 nonfiction books next year. Because I have so many I want to read. The Bicameral Mind by Julian Jaynes, Beware by Sapolsky. I want to do that.
Behave.
Or Behave. What did I say? Behave. Yes. I want to read Fire Cannot Kill a Dragon or something like that. The book about the retrospect about the TV show for Game of Thrones. And then I have another nonfiction. I can't remember the name of it. Someone actually recommended to me. So I won't be talking about those on the channel, though. Very doubtful. Those are more so just for me.
I have to say, because Gavin's here, that I really enjoyed his Britney Spears vlog. He read Britney Spears' memoir. He had a great vlog on it.
Yeah. Gavin's channel is fantastic. Mm-hmm. He has an energy that I wish I had. Like I perk up when I watch Gavin, especially on his reading sprints. He always does them at a time. It's usually when I'm working, and I'm like, God, I want to be reading and not working right now.
Yeah.
Matt says the Poisonwood Bible is so good, dude. Love it, and I love seeing some love for Demon Copperhead as well.
Which one do you recommend more, Demon Copperhead or the Poisonwood Bible? I think you said you liked Poisonwood Bible more.
So I think I like Poisonwood Bible more. I really have to think about this. Like, I don't want to make that statement. So I'm still figuring it out. But without a doubt, the one that I would recommend to more people is Demon Copperhead. Okay. Poisonwood Bible is a very specific thing for me.
Yeah.
Whereas, so is Demon Copperhead. But Demon Copperhead is something I think most people are aware of, at least in America. So I think that Demon Copperhead would definitely be the recommendation of the two. Like if you wanted to start somewhere, I think it would be Demon Copperhead.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Both sound really interesting, though.
Yeah, it's a good thing I only can put one book from each author on my top 10 because Kingsolver and Mitchell would just be like cleaning house, and people would be like, well, name somebody else.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited that you're going to read Behave, though. I love that book.
Well, he had a new book come out as well, and I really wanted.
Did it come out?
I think so. Really yeah, because he did a couple interviews with a couple of podcasters I like, talking about his book. So I'm fairly sure it's out. Yeah. Jared says that I think about half my reading is nonfiction. Well, that's because you're super duper intelligent, and I'm not. Yeah. No, it's kind of like what we're interested in. Actually, the other nonfiction I was going to read is Hitch 22. Which Jared actually recommended to me. It's the memoirs of Christopher Hitchens. And he narrates the audiobook, which, I think will be highly entertaining. And also The Dawn of Everything for me. That's the one Erickson recommended on the channel whenever he was on.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember him talking about that. I feel like Erickson always recommends interesting nonfiction books.
He recommended me a lot of fantasy that I hadn't heard of down whenever I met him in Orlando. And I wrote it down in a phone and I did not keep it when I switched phones and I lost it. So I
Oh,
feel like I
no.
need to like email him and be like, hey man, what was that book about a mercenary you told me about? It was very obscure. Like I'd never heard of it. And I looked it up on Goodreads and it had like a couple thousand, but it was written back in I think the 80s. And I don't know what it was. And I can't remember the
Mm.
premise either, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it seems like he reads a lot of sci-fi these days too. I got that impression when he was on
Oh,
chatting with us.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, folks, if you were interested in the Corbel Brooch, I always feel like I mess up the names and get them backwards. But if you're
Yeah.
interested in his novellas from Malazan, they are now on Audible. There's an audiobook for all three of them, which is really
Okay.
awesome. It's Botulin and Corbel Brooch. So those three novellas are available on Audible finally, which
Yay.
is excellent.
Yay. I do own the physical copies. I still haven't gotten to them. So maybe that'll be further inspiration.
David Sloan said, Poisonwood Bible, about young girls in another country. Copperhead, about drugs where Jimmy grew up. Jimmy, Poisonwood is specifically a me thing. It's more the missionary work is what connects with me.
Yeah.
Um,
I got
but
that impression from what you said.
yeah,
Mhm.
but that is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Cool.
Oh
Yeah.
yes. Determined is the new book. Yeah.
I'm really curious about Determined because I feel like Behave, it does feel like once you get to the end, it does seem to build a pretty strong case for lack of free will. And then I hear that this other one is a stronger case, but I don't know. I haven't read it yet, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think it goes into determinism, but I mean, obviously with determined being the title, but I do know that that's an ever evolving field. So some of the stuff that was in Behave, I think has, I don't want to use the word debunked, but there's another side of it, right?
Yeah.
Which is hard because when you write something like that in an emerging field with all this new evidence coming out, uh, some things are not going to age as well, which is why people end up, doing corrections and then revising and releasing new editions and stuff like that. But I think for the most part, people have a lot of respect for Sapolsky because of his just mind, right? He's been teaching it forever. Um, so
Yeah.
I hope to get to Determined and Behave both.
Yeah. I'm sure that that's true. That a lot of things, I mean, there's a constant research, emerging all the time. And that book was written a while back. But it was neat that he approached the topic from so many different fronts in that book. So I
Mhm.
just appreciated the way he did that and then synthesized all his findings. I thought it was very, very interesting, very compelling read. It will definitely get you thinking, and I'd just be curious to hear your thoughts. Right now, I'm listening to a nonfiction audiobook called Cultish, and
Hmm.
it's about, I guess, somebody trying to put together I don't know, like the science behind language and how cults form, but how there might be there's not really a specific definition of cult. I mean, as
Mhm.
far as like distinguishing this is exactly what a cult is versus what isn't, it's more like a spectrum. And some things are clearly on the cult, high on the cult spectrum, whereas other things it might be a little bit more ambiguous.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm getting out of it right now is that people who are most susceptible, from what I understand, I don't know if I'm totally understanding everything this author is saying, to be honest with you, but one of the things that she's making a case for, it seems, is that people who tend to be very open-minded and very optimistic, to have such an optimism where they have a blind side about things, tend to be the perfect people to fall
Hmm.
into a cult. Because then they fall for that confirmation bias of like, "Oh, you're telling me what I wanna hear. Yes," that kind of
I
thing.
uh I definitely have a bit of a fascination with cult. I will watch literally any documentary about a cult. It's definitely one of those things that I'm interested in. In fact, a lot of the ideas I've had whenever it comes to writing actually center around cults. And I've thought about like what if a cult felt validated like by happenstance, and then like what is that like? And getting out of that. There's so many different angles to it, but I always find it fascinating. Kind of actually for what Mike J said. He said cults are the craziest thing ever. How one person can control a group of people is nuts to me. I always feel that way when I started, and then by the end, I'm like, those poor people. almost
Yeah.
almost all the time. I'm like, wow. And
Yeah.
you start, I don't know about y'all, but I think about people in my life that I'm like, yep, they'd fall for it 100%, like without a doubt. Um,
Well, I
Taylor
have
Swift.
a relative. I have a my dad's first cousin was in a cult back in the 60s, and it's a really interesting story. He was in a famous cult. It's actually even mentioned in that book. And his story is that he was a hippie in the 60s. He became a heroin addict. And one day he was running from the cops, and a van came by and offered to save him. So he jumped in the van to escape the cops, joined the cult, and they did actually help him get clean. They did help him get rid of his addiction, but they had him marry a woman and have kids and move to South Africa. And then eventually he was, I don't know if I'm getting, I think it was South Africa. I could be wrong about that, or
Is he part of the Jim
South
Jones?
America. No,
Oh,
it was a
okay.
it was South America. I'm sorry, it was South America. Um, I hope I got that right. I could be wrong. I'm not even gonna say who this relative was or what the cult was, but, he ended up, deciding to leave the cult one day, and it was really sad because his wife didn't wanna leave. So he had to leave his wife and kids, move back home, started his life over, left the cult, then got married again, had more kids, and then that's when I knew him. I knew him through his kids that he had through the second wife. And then later on, the adult kids who were kids from the cult got in touch with him and they reunited. And I guess they had left, they'd left it behind. And it was actually a really nice reunion.
I mean, that could have ended far worse. Like
Oh,
I was
yeah.
expecting the punch bowl whenever you said South America. I was like, oh my god. Um, it's interesting that that was literally a physical representation of usually the approach the cults take, which is finding someone who is in need of help that is down and out, and then bringing them. Usually, it's emotionally damaged. This case, it was actually a physical down and like I need to get away from the cops, and they're like,
Mhm.
"We got you," and they scooped him up. And then, of course, you're going to be grateful. These
Yeah.
people are one able to give you a reprieve from the law, but also they are probably not judging you, and you probably feel some sort of shame from being on the run. That is a crazy story.
It
You've
is.
had a pretty interesting life, Joanna. Like most people don't know this, but you were also hit by a car.
I
Like you're
know I
not
was. I was
Alan's not my
literally
only
run
guest that was run over. You were as well.
I was run over by a station wagon when I was 14 years old.
That's so 80s of you.
I It wasn't that long ago.
I always associate station wagon with the
It
80s.
probably was from the 80s, honestly, the station wagon was. It was a boat of a car.
So watch everybody how you got ran over by a station wagon.
Oh, yeah, sure. So, I was 14 years old, and I was a bit of a crazy kid at the time, I won't lie. My parents went out of town to Spain for a week, and so I spent the week partying and doing crazy stuff. I mean, I was just a wild child, and the last night they were gone, I thought, "I'm gonna be grounded tonight. I'm going to stay out of trouble. I'm just gonna have a calm, boring night." So my friends came over, and they came over in a station wagon. It was my best friend at the time, and her brother who were driving the station wagon, and then another couple brother and sister friend. It was kind of 2 brother and sister people. Anyway, one girl and I sat on the hood of the station wagon. It was parked in the front yard, just talking, having a chat, when the brother of my best friend got in the driver's seat of the car and started the car. And we just kept talking, thinking, whatever, he's just playing with us, not a big deal. His sister got in the passenger seat. They started driving the car with us sitting on the hood. It was terrifying. I started screaming. We were like, stop the car, don't do this." And yeah, I'm sure that 10 miles per hour feels really, really slow when you're inside the car. But
Not
when
so
you're
much when you're
sitting on
surfing
the
on it.
hood, it is terrifying. So he kept going around the block. The block that my parents live on is about point 0.8 of a mile, point 0.8 tenths of a mile. He came to one stop, and I nearly slid off right then, and, the other girl who was on the car, she was a bit bigger than me, she was able to catch my wrist and keep me on. He went almost all the way around the block, and then he stopped, he slightly went off the road or something. I right away slid off, gashed my elbow, my forehead, was on the ground, looked back, and saw the front wheel of the car go over the calf of my right leg and the knee of my left leg. Yeah.
So you watched it happen.
I watched it happen.
You were there for the whole thing.
I was. And I screamed. I screamed so loudly. And they came up and they were like, they got out of the car and they said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "You guys just ran over my legs." And they said, "No." I said, "Yes." And they said, "No." They said, "Joanna, this is a 2 or 3 ton station wagon. If we ran over your legs, they would be so crushed." And I said, "No, no, no, no. I saw it. I saw it." And then the neighbor came up because I was screaming, and they brought a flashlight. They said because the sun had just gone down. And they said, "What's going on?" And I said, "Oh, nothing. I'm fine. I'm fine." And I got up and I tried to walk, and then I realized I couldn't walk. And my friend, one of the friends who wasn't on the car or in the car, he was a bigger guy. He picked me up and he brought me inside and laid me down on my couch. Right then, the everything happened at once. My parents got home from Spain. The cop came over. The ambulance got there. It was wild. And yeah, I was very, very lucky. I only got a hairline fracture in my left knee. Um, yeah, it was a very strange thing. I still owned the jeans that I wore for a long time. They were these anchor blue jeans. Anyway,
Did they
but
have a
yeah,
tire mark on them?
I on the jeans? I don't know. I remember they cut them with scissors. They had to cut off the jeans. And what's weird about that is I was a choir girl. So that morning I had to sing in a performance and had to wear concert attire. And so I had worn black tights underneath or black pantyhose underneath my jeans. And I always wondered if that helped. I don't know if it did, but anyway, they had to cut through all of that. And yeah, I got a hairline fracture in my kneecap and it swelled to the size of a bowling ball. I kid you not. It was black and blue. And then my muscles atrophied in my muscles and in my quads and hamstrings. So I just had like this stick of a leg with a big ball of a knee. And I was on crutches and I only had Tylenol or Advil. Back then, they did not prescribe legit painkillers like they do now.
Oh
So
man.
it was painful. Like it was horrendous pain just to get across my little tiny bedroom at the time. It was rough.
Would you categorize that experience for you as not cash money?
No, not cash money. No.
You should have just turned to the driver and said, "That was not very cash money of you."
Yeah. Gosh.
So you wouldn't recommend it.
No,
All
no.
right.
That family hated me after that though, because I had to give a statement for court on the phone, and I was bound under oath to say what happened. So I said what happened, and it didn't look in favor of the guy who was driving the station wagon. So he got his license revoked. So the family hated me after that, which was kind of sad, but
Was his name Tony Stewart by chance?
no.
He has a knack for running over people.
No.
It's very sad.
Yeah. Is that
Yeah.
the guy? Yeah. No.
Yeah, he ran over someone and killed him. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah. That got dark
yeah.
really fast, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It was not fun. I always describe it as the moment when a teenager realizes their own mortality. It was crazy though. It was a wild night. It was a really, really wild night.
Mitch believes that you shouldn't have snitched.
Man. I kind of felt bad about it, but if I was always brought up to think if you're under oath, aren't you supposed to tell the truth? I mean, that's what you're
Well,
supposed to
someone
do.
should tell the people in the government that because they've been lying on the under oath for years. Release the UFOs. No, I'm just kidding. Someone
Everybody says that to me. Like everybody says that, like what some Okie Dude is saying
says, "I can't
here.
imagine you being a party animal," but Johanna be out here raving. Okay,
Yeah.
glow sticks,
Mm.
the whole jam.
You have no idea. You have no idea. It was
Well, I got
crazy.
time if you want to tell some more stories.
I don't know. I was pretty crazy back then though, and I grew up a little bit, I think. I hope. But stayed the same height. That was the sad part because I had to go to the orthopedic surgeon because of my knee. And I remember at the time because I was 14, he looked at me and looked at my mom and he said, are you about as tall as your mother?" And my mother is much taller than me. And we both said no. He said, "Well, you're not going to grow anymore." He said, "Maybe an inch, but your growth plates are almost completely in." So, and he was right. I grew maybe another inch or a half an inch then. stayed that height for the rest of my life.
Did it affect you with your knee injury running? Because I know you were a big runner.
Yeah. It's really weird about that. So I recovered actually very quickly. I took physical therapy very seriously when I was injured, and I really enjoyed physical therapy. I think I've always really enjoyed exercise for whatever reason. I'm
Mhm.
just prone to it for some reason. I just really enjoy it. And um, I remember at the time I walked a lot. I was walking everywhere all day, every day. And I never thought I'd be able to run again, though. I remember giving up basketball because I used to love playing basketball, but I never thought I would ever be able to be an athlete. And it wasn't until the end of high school or maybe the beginning of college when a friend of mine, um, what happened was the reason I got into running was because I had gained a lot of weight at that time. I was quite a bit heavier when I was a late teen. And I had a guy friend who lived down the street from me and he wanted to help me out. I think he felt bad for me because I don't know, because I was quite a bit heavier. And so he said, you should go running with me. We should run. Running is the best thing ever. And then you can eat whatever you want. And so I said, "Okay."
What a
So
way
we
to
lived on
sell
the
it.
same. What?
What a way to sell it.
I know, right? So I said, "I wanna be able to eat whatever I want." And so, we got up early one morning and started and I said as I said, the block I lived on at the time was about 8/10 of a mile. So we started out and he said, "The trick is to go very, very slowly. Just go as slow as possible so you can keep a steady pace." So we started jogging, like, super, super slowly together. We weren't even around the whole block. He's like, "I can't do this anymore. Go on without me." And I kept going and I was like, "Oh, wow, I can do this." And I just immediately fell in love with running and I started doing it every day. And the next thing I knew, I just was doing it every day and I became a runner for the next 20 years. So I don't know. I don't
You
know how that
and
works.
Philip.
Yeah. I don't know. It's really weird. I always thought though that I would never be able to be a runner because of that knee injury, but
Yeah.
somehow I have had some injuries along the way. Have had to work on muscle development
Mhm.
and do specific things, specific physical therapy things. I think because I'm a little lopsided due to that injury, but it's never kept me from being active, surprisingly. And I still run every now and then. I don't run as much anymore, but I'll run a few miles a week and I'm fine, as long as I'm just paying attention to my body and doing some strengthening here and there.
Yeah, I relate to this. I felt like running was something that really helped me out whenever I first started trying to lose weight back in the day.
Mm.
I lost like 90 to 100 pounds whenever I
Mm.
was in high school, and I would run all the time, but I was running on concrete, and I didn't realize that that's not great for you.
Mm.
I was running a lot, like a lot, and running just was never in the cards for me after that, and then I had knee injuries and stuff like that. And they were like, it's probably not a good idea. Like maybe you should just stop moving for a while. So I've always kind of leaned into the other thing, but there is something about that flow, which I know you're a big fan of. You love your thumbnail. I always think of it.
My husband's like, "You look like a hula dancer."
Yeah, yeah. Like you're about to spout some new age essential oil. Like I was like, here
I
we
I
this
kinda
is
suck
it.
at thumbnails, honestly, but
No, you don't
I'll
suck
have
at
to work on it.
thumbnails.
Yeah, thank
No,
you.
stop. I mean, for me, that flow is something that I find when I read. Like whenever
Mhm.
you get that long win, I see it in the gym and jujitsu and some other things. I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty lately. I've been getting in the flow of that.
Yeah.
Um, but whenever you related that to running, I did know what you meant because whenever I used to run back in the like when I was younger, yeah, you just get into this mode and then
You
kind of
almost feel like you're flying or something, like your body just almost has a mind of its own and you're just one with it. It's so amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like whenever it's time to read or maybe like you're having trouble like picking up a book? Do you ever like like just say to yourself like, dude, you like reading. Why aren't you reading right now?
Mhm.
I had so last month I obviously read a ton of books. Um, but for me, it was just like the acknowledgement of like, I have time. I'm on my phone. Put down the stupid phone. Quit refreshing Discord and just read. Like and I would read like 2 chapters. I'd be like, well, that's enough for today. And in my head, I was like, you want to keep reading? Just keep reading. And like I gave myself permission to do that. And there were multiple 4-hour reading sessions that I went through, and I was just cruising through books. And I was just like, I forgot I know that sounds weird.
No, it
Like, I
doesn't.
forgot that I'm just like allowed to binge. Like, that's a totally reasonable thing to do when you have free time. I always think I got to be doing something else. Like, I feel like I need to be doing a video or something, like be productive. And sometimes I'm like, I can just relax. Also, Gavin says that he loves your thumbnails. So
Aw,
they're so inviting.
thank you. I'm so honored to hear that from Gavin. Thank you.
And also, people want you to do a video on partying.
I'm always open to feedback. So thank you.
I took 10 bong rips, and this is me rating GTK.
Oh my goodness.
Ranking the Malazan novels on Ashwanda.
Yay. Love it.
Alice says, I enjoy that your brows aren't furrowed in your thumbnails. Salty Johanna.
I could do that. I was thinking about doing that because I did okay, so I did a video recently on ranking I didn't rank them, but I talked about my reread experience of books. Were they just as good as the first time or something like that? And the thumbnail is me holding open a Game of Thrones, whatever. But I did do some B-roll footage in that video at the beginning where I'm like looking at I have I'll get these with me, but I'm looking at Stoner and I'm looking at Midnight Tides and I'm doing this kind of like thing. And I took a minute and I screenshotted that and I like put the words better on reread. And I'm like, that might be a more YouTube looking thumbnail. But then Alan would probably kill me because it does have the brows like
Alan would be upset.
But it probably would get more views, honestly.
You know, I am so upset that when you dressed up as Cersei Lannister and did some method acting, that didn't just go viral because I thought it was fantastic.
Thank you. I'm so proud.
You put a lot of
video.
effort into that.
I did, and I was so proud. I'm still proud of that video.
Seeing you as a blonde was a trip.
What was that?
Seeing you as a blonde was a trip.
Wasn't it awesome? I loved it. I've never been a blonde before. It was so awesome. I loved it.
So what's the dream blunt rotation in fantasy characters? Like you got 3 people. Like
the dream what rotation?
Blunt rotation.
What do you mean by that?
Like sharing a blunt with fantasy characters.
Okay, that kind of blunt.
You don't actually have to answer that.
I want to hear your answers.
Tattersail. I'm just randomly naming.
I love that. That's a great
Shade. Alan is so
offended. Yes.
Shade, Tattersail, Jarl from the sequels in Second Apocalypse, which if you've read those, that's out there. And then I would pick Bobby Baratheon.
Oh, those are so good.
Yeah, let's go.
Maybe I'll go with a Akamian from Prince of
he's gonna bring it. Oh man. Okay. Okay.
Doesn't he look like he could? I don't know.
Oh, he better. He needs to chill.
He just fits that scene, that vibe. I'm gonna go with Iron Bars from Malazan. And
Iron Bars.
I love Iron Bars.
What about Hellion or Hellion?
Oh, I love Hellion. Oh, she would be perfect. Okay, I'll go with Hellion. She's fantastic.
No. You can't pick that. I came up with that. You got to pick something else.
Oh,
One more.
I want to go with Locke or Jean. Can I have them both?
You know what? Fun. You can do a package deal.
Yeah. I mean, they are kind of a package deal, you know?
Locke would be fantastic.
Yeah. I love that character so much. Alan, please read The Gentleman Bastards, please.
Iscaral Pust would be a nightmare blunt rotation.
Goodness.
Krupp and the donkey.
And the mule. Yeah.
And the mule, yeah. And the mule. Goodness. Alan said no. Alan is not a fan of this topic.
I don't think there are any books. Like if I spent the whole year reading nothing but Alan, he probably still wouldn't do it. But
Tom Bombadil, Gandalf, Nine Fingers, the
I like those choices. See, those are better. Oh,
Severian would be smoking feckless flesh.
How did we get on this topic?
You're the party animal. I'm just
here. Oh my goodness!
I'm here to mediate. I'm just trying to keep you in line here.
Yeah, man, it's like I was a huge Pink Floyd fan back then too. I was just remembering that yesterday. That came up in conversation on booktube. Huge Pink Floyd and The Wall. Have you ever seen The Wall, by the way, by Pink Floyd, the movie?
No, no, I haven't.
Jimmy,
If it has a wall, I'm interested. I like
please,
walls.
please watch The Wall. It's one of my
That makes me
favorite
that makes
movies of
me
all time.
makes me sound bad. I don't
It's a
like all walls.
masterpiece. And yes, you have said many times that you love walls and fantasy,
I like overcoming the wall.
but you've gotta watch The Wall. You've
Okay.
gotta watch The Wall. It's a masterpiece.
The
In my
wall.
opinion, I can it's
I would say the wall's awful.
no, it's a brilliant movie. Oh my goodness, Jimmy, let's watch it together. We should have a
Let's do
watch
it.
party, a wall watch party.
Let's do a watch party on Alan's channel of just you and I.
Let's do it. Yes. It's so good. It really is. It's really a masterpiece. I still think so. Um, Dan from the Black and Blue Collared Reader, the reason why this came up is because he did a review of Simon Jimenez's The Spear That Cuts Through Water, which is another book I need to get to. And he was comparing it to Pink Floyd. And I said,
Hmm.
Pink Floyd was my favorite band growing up. I guess it still is my favorite band. I just honestly don't listen to them very much anymore, but I love the band. And he sent me a video to a classical musician having a reaction to Comfortably Numb, which is one of the songs from that album, and it was so good. I love it. I started listening to the song again, and I just wanted to watch The Wall again. I love that movie. It's so good. It's so good. I want to talk about it, but I think you just need to watch it first.
I want to read The Spear That Cuts Through Water, not just
Oh,
because of what you're saying, but because
mhm.
Evie may do a B&E on me if I don't do it soon. Like I could see her breaking down my door and demanding. I have pulled it off the shelf, so
Yeah.
it's on the coffee table downstairs. That's
I'll
a
go
good sign.
ahead and give away that I am planning to get to that in the first quarter of the year. Maybe
I don't know
even
about the first quarter, maybe second quarter.
you're like, hold on.
But
Yeah.
I love the Vanished Bird so much, and you like that book as
Mhm.
well. Very musical.
Mhm. Yes. Yes. I really loved Jimenez's prose. I thought it was great. Um,
I know there's a play though in Spear Cuts Through Waters, and I'm like, I can't do any more plays. Like Gene Wolfe about broke me, and I know there's a play in the third Book of the New Sun too, and I'm like, oh my god,
wait, you don't like plays? I thought you said because you did
I
it.
don't want to
Yeah.
read them. I don't want to read plays in my book.
I have a feeling there might be well, at least there
Oh, I know.
might be something coming up.
I can feel it coming, and I'm not looking forward to
Oh
it.
no. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be fun.
Murphy just said, "Uh-oh." Listen, it's too soon since Claw of the Conciliators play, where it broke my brain. But Republic of Thieves, most likely, it won't be as dense as Book of the New Suns was. By the way, how funny is this book? Republic
It's
of Thieves is
hilarious.
hilarious.
It's
It
so
is
funny.
it is one of the I would say it is probably the funniest series I've ever read, honestly.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about this before, maybe. I let me know if I'm wrong about this. I could say for myself, I don't usually pick up books just because I hear they're funny. Like, a book being funny is not a buzzword for me, but I have laughed out loud so many times reading this book. I love Scott Lynch's humor. It's like I love it's not exactly like Abercrombie's, but Abercrombie also is so hilarious. I love it though. So good.
Yeah, I it's one of the very few books that I would say that I genuinely enjoy the humor in. Like I look forward to the humor. Most books I read, I don't look forward to the humor, and sometimes it can be a turnoff as well. Yeah, I've been noticing this. Bechendel says I'm a huge Scott Lynch fan. I hated to play in Republic of Thieves. A lot of people hate Republic of Thieves, which
Do they?
oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I know it's a least favorite. I constantly hear people say it's my least favorite, but it's still Lynch. But do you think people outwardly hate it?
I know many people are like, man, like that third book was just bunk, like it was garbage. And I don't know. I'm 40% in, and I'm really enjoying it. Do I think I'm enjoying it as much as the first two? Maybe not, but like, I'm still having a great time. I just like Scott Lynch's writing style.
Yeah, I'm loving it so far, honestly. I don't even know if I love it more or less, honestly. Maybe I think I know I liked book 2 more than book 1, which I think is an unpopular opinion.
I like them about equal. I don't know if I could pick one, to be honest with you. Um, I think I like the setting a bit more in book
Mhm.
two, but I think I might have liked the conflict in book one just a little bit more. But it's very, very close. Kai says I should read the plays out loud. I have heard that that is a strategy for plays and stories. Actually, that's not the first time I've heard this. Maybe I'll go
Interesting.
back and reread the Book of the New Sun play. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Murphy's a
Oh,
great.
no.
Yeah, there's quite a few people who do not like Republic of Thieves. I know Bridger's not a huge fan. A lot of people feel like the political things that we're getting into it doesn't fit necessarily. I feel like we haven't got far enough into it for me to make a judgment on it yet. But I just know I'm having a great time. And plus,
Yeah.
I love Michael Page. Like,
Yeah. Yes.
can't think of a
I
better pairing.
He's so good. He's so good.
He really
Um,
is.
it's a fantastic read so far. So I'm gonna try to keep an open mind and we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'll end up at least enjoying it a lot. So and Jared, you're right. I should just start Book of the New Sun all over again. And I will. That's something I'll probably be perpetually rereading, like A Song of Ice and Fire. It's definitely that good. And it needs to be reread.
I was gonna ask you that. Is it that kind of book where you just like you get to the end of a section or an end of the book and then you think, I want to go right back to the beginning?
Oh, already. Yeah. I mean, I felt that way a little bit in Malazan. I always feel like people who say you have to reread Malazan are wrong, if
Yeah.
I'm being honest. I don't think that that's right. Um, Book of the New Sun might be one that you actually might have to reread. You know, you don't have to reread anything, but you would get a whole nother appreciation, I imagine. So,
Yeah. I reread Midnight Tides this year, but I only did it via audio. So I don't even know if that's fair. You know what I mean? Like
mhm.
without actually immersion reading it at least. But I really enjoyed it upon reread. But I don't know that the enjoyment level itself necessarily got stronger, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
I did appreciate new levels of it or different things about it, knowing things that come further on, knowing where the story ends, knowing things that go through book 10. So I
Yeah.
can see why the reread is promoted so much, but I don't know that it's like that much better on reread. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think once you start rereading the series multiple times, it gets a lot easier to start tying in things and recognizing patterns
Mhm.
and meanings behind things. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I feel like I look at A Song of Ice and Fire through a very different lens because I've read it so many times, and I've talked about it for literally probably hundreds of hours at this point on Bend the Knee, and then obviously this channel as well, and then other things that I've collabed on. And when I reread it, I don't know if I enjoy it any more than I did before. I certainly don't enjoy it less,
No,
but I
exactly.
find new things that I like about it. Which is something I imagine. Actually, speaking of Alan, this would be a great question for Alan because he read Malazan like books 1 through 6 like 85 times. It seems like so.
That's
I would
true.
love to hear it, what he would have to say about it. But Book of the New Sun, I think David said it in chat. It's about as close to as it gets to being mandatory reread territory. Like I would say, it's pretty. It's as close as it would be. Really,
Wow.
the writing is fantastic though. I'll be excited to see what you think of it. Um, Alan said, say about what? Just like rereading a book and maybe not necessarily liking it less or more, but like it being a different type of story. Like when
Different.
you reread it, just it changing, you know.
Yeah.
Because I know you've read Malazan more than anyone I know,
Yeah.
which is so funny to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I that's how I feel about rereads, at least rereading some of my favorite books. That's been my
Mhm.
experience so far. It's not
Yeah,
that I love them any less. It's just that I love it just as much, but just in a different way. And it's hard to compare the two experiences.
it really is. I mean, this is the time of the year about this time where we start comparing books though. And
Yeah.
I'm splitting up my video this year based on my poll. I'm going to do a year-end awards video that'll probably be about 15, 20 minutes. And then I'm going to do my top 10 of the year. I'm going to split them because last year I think my video was like 40, 45 minutes. And honestly, it was a lot. It was a lot. So I'm going to split them. But my only concern is I feel like a year-end awards, like I have to have a book of the year almost, right? Like I feel like
Mm.
you know what I'm saying? But I want to save that for the top 10 books. So I thought about maybe doing like a fantasy book of the year, a contemporary fiction book of the year, but I still think that gives away a bit of the top 10. So I think it's going to be focused more like around characters, surprises, disappointments, which obviously you guys know it's 11 cycle. That favorite antagonist, protagonist, favorite world, new series started, new author to me, those kind of things. And see if that would be enough. I think people would like it. What are you doing? Like, what are your plans
I'm
for the
trying.
year?
I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm trying to think about ideas right now because yeah, the end of the year is coming up, and it's challenging because I feel like I read. It's hard to do a top 10 when you read different genres, isn't it?
Yeah.
I have a really hard time with that. So it'll be favorite books, and it won't all be fantasy. I'll just give that away. There's no way. But it's
Yeah.
hard. It's just hard for me to rank them because of that. It's a different kind of experience.
It is. 2024 is the year I've never put out like a top 10 books of all time. I've never put out my top 10 authors of all time.
Me neither.
So 2024 is the year I'm going to plan on doing that finally,
Mhm.
because I feel like I've read enough to where I feel like I might not have to redo it for a while, hopefully. And I also kept getting comments from some of my longtime viewers like, how many people is that on your top authors list now? Because I was saying Mitchell and Kingsolver could potentially enter that over time if they continue this way, which people take as like they're in the top 10 now. So I got a bee in my bonnet and I went and looked of all the times and all the people I would consider to be in my top 10. And there are 20 of them. So there are 20 people I consider like favorite authors. So I have to cut that down to 10, and then I will have a list, at least for the year of 2024, that's in stone. That's a very difficult thing to do because I feel like I need to find parameters. Like if I've only read one book by you, like J.M. Coetzee, I don't feel like I can put him in there. Like he's not making the list because of that. But I feel like I need to have at least read multiple books. It's also hard whenever an author's done one series and I've just read that, like Realm of the Elderlings. Haba has other stuff. Erickson has other stuff. George is easy because I've read his sci-fi and stuff. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I feel like such an imposter with all those authors because I've only read, like, for example, with Erickson, I've only read Malazan. I haven't read Rejoice or his sci-fi books. Same with Martin. I haven't read Fever Dream or any of his sci-fi books. Hobbes, same thing. So yeah, it's hard to say something as an auto buy author when you don't buy their other genres.
Yeah, I mean, there's authors I have a great feeling about. I mean, even someone who gets off on the wrong foot, like Adrian Tchaikovsky. I always say his name wrong. Don't yell at me. Hated Cage of Souls, but really, really loved Children of Time. And now I'm like, man, if he has more books like Children of Time, like that level, like he's a prolific guy. If I read 10, like for instance, I've read so many Ted Williams books and I've only disliked one. That's
Yeah.
that's pretty good.
I know I've heard from Sarah Reed. She said that Tchaikovsky is a chameleon when it comes to writing. That every book is completely different from the other. I've heard really good things about his book Dogs of War. I guess it's a
Yes.
duology, but a lot of people were recommending it to me.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much out there that I want to give a shot. But I mean, as of at least of in 2024, 4 years of doing booktube, I'll have some list up finally. Because like when I first joined booktube, I mean that's what I wanted to do. They looked fun.
Yeah, they are fun. Yeah.
Books of Being Scott says, Jimmy, did you enjoy the experience of watching Coetzee saying his own name and then not helping? Yes, it's brutal to say his name. I just try to get through as fast as possible.
I've just
Coetzee.
been saying Coetzee. I don't know how do you say it? Do you know?
I've heard it Coetzee. I've heard people say like it pronounce different things in it. I don't know. I just say Coetzee and move on. It's close enough. Whatever. You should
Yeah.
listen to him say it though, because you'll hear him say it and you won't be able to say it back. It's the strangest thing. Like,
I will have to look that up. I'll look it
yeah.
up.
Um, it's your list. Who cares if you only read the series by someone? They can still be your favorite. You're right, Tom, 100%. But for me, I just wanted to have I wanted to make it stressful on myself. You know
Mm.
what I mean? That's kind of the fun. That's the thing. Like these top 10 lists of the year, I actually take them fairly serious because I don't want to get it wrong. And I have gotten things wrong before. Like Vanish Bird should have been on my top 10 last
Mm.
year. I
Mm.
regret that. I regret not putting it in there. I also wish I would have put Fire and Blood higher. I didn't want to be biased towards George, but when I think about it, Fire and Blood's one of my favorite books. Why didn't I
So
put it higher? You know,
yeah.
now I feel very good about those lists still to this day. There's nothing I like deeply wish it was removed, but there's just stuff that it was tough calls, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the hard part is your feelings are probably gonna change over time. Mine do quite often.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still trying to figure all that out, and I don't have very much time left to do it.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's, next week I got some live streams, and then I gotta do my Patreon hangout, and I'm like, and then it's, Christmas, and I gotta make these videos because my hope is I could release maybe next week, possibly the year-end awards, and then the top 10 books to me is my capstone project, and that will be released right before New Year's Eve, most likely. So we'll see. I don't
I
know, and
wonder
I'm
about
also
that because I feel like a lot of people are feeling the need to get those out as soon as possible,
I always try to wait
and
till the last second.
yeah, yeah. Do you think that I'm just curious for myself, do you think that the energy behind those kinds of videos dies down after January 1st? If people post
No,
them a
you
little
still get
late?
the first week. You still, because people, a lot of people come back to reading in the first week of January. We see this in the podcast game over on Bend the Knee. Our numbers shoot way up because people start to get back into the things that they enjoy. They get some time off possibly, and they start thinking about, like, what do I really want to do? And a lot of people say, I'm going to read more this year. So they come back, and also it's the dead of winter in a lot of places and there's nothing to do. So I think people come in that first week and they want recommendations because that's really what top 10 lists are. There are people who are invested in what your favorite picks are, but ultimately it's just a plethora of hopefully recommendations. And you could say, oh, that kind of sounds interesting. And then you add it to your list. I mean, that's what I used to do, right? Booktube serves as a curator for the countless amount of fantasy books that there are, or any books really. And I think that that's what people end up coming for. So I think that first week of January, you're still good. You're still on the hype train. If you come out in January 14th, just don't post the video. Just save it. Save it for the next year.
Oh, no.
I'm just kidding. You can do whatever you want.
It's weird. There's like a whole science to YouTube, isn't there, or to BookTube?
Jan
Never
1 is when you get to release the 12 books you must read this year. I mean,
alright.
it probably would go viral, honestly.
Goodness.
I'll just keep doing chatting with nuts and asking people their dream blunt rotation for fantasy
I
characters.
I can't wait to hear everybody else's now.
I'm gonna
People
ask
came up with
Tad.
such amazing ones in the chat here,
Yeah,
so
there were some really good ones. Tom Bombadil might have been the goat, actually. That might be the
Yes,
ultimate one.
that's perfect.
Joanna,
Yes.
thank you for being here. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This was so much fun.
It was a lot of fun. We talk almost every single day
It's
anyways.
true.
So this just feels like another very long voice message sent back and forth, doesn't it?
Yes. I'm
Um,
really grateful you still wanna talk to me because I was thinking that. I'm like, "We talk so much that I'm afraid he's not gonna wanna talk with me on his live chat because or his live show."
no, we
Because
always have something to talk about.
somehow we
And
do. Yeah.
yeah, and I've always enjoyed talking about books with you. I've always enjoyed recommending things to you, and just appreciate your friendship. I really do, and you're one of the good ones. I know that for sure. Don't betray my trust. This week has been very difficult in extending ourselves out and not knowing the scary things that are out there. But one thing I can say with almost certainty is that you're definitely one of the good ones.
Mm. I feel the same way about you. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Folks, I have Joanna's channel link down in the description below. I think, I hope that I hope that it's down there. Make sure it's down there, Joanna. If not, I'll fix it.
I'll make sure. Yeah.
Yes, please do. But go subscribe to Joanna's channel. She has amazing videos. You have to check out the Cersei Lannister depiction. I mean, it's one of my favorite ones. What's the title of that video?
Oh, what is it called?
Oh, you're fumbling the pitch.
I don't
Oh man.
remember. Shoot.
Oh, just
Hold on. Give me 1 second.
fumbling the bag.
So I did a Cersei Lannister video, and it was called Where's My Cersei
It
Lannister
was called
video?
Cersei Lannister: A Feast for Crows spoilers. It was
Thank
posted
you.
5 months ago, and it has Joanna in a Cersei wig with a goblet, and it's one of my favorite booktube videos. So you guys should definitely go check it out if you're in a Song of Ice and Fire fan or Game of Thrones television show. Joanna did a lot of cool stuff in that video. I thought it was really cool.
I bought special props, a backdrop, everything just for that one
Well,
video.
I appreciated it.
Thank you.
And Joanna, you also have a show tomorrow with your Why Read, which is your long form live discussion, and you want to pitch that?
I do, yes. I host a live discussion show called Why Read, and it's a lot of fun because we always start with the same question when I remember and don't forget and ask, "How are you?" which I do sometimes. But we always start with the Why Read question. And tomorrow I have Yolanda and Carlos from StoryTube joining me. So I'm very excited about that. And I hope you all join us in the live chat or in the replay. Just grateful to have you there. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Make sure you go check that out and support that. Johanna has wonderful conversations over there. She gets a lot of different type of people over there. People that people love over here. You know, Jared Henderson's been on there. Murphy's been on there. Alan, of course, is on almost every single episode, I think. And it's always a good time. Always a lot of thoughtful discussion. Also just fun and funny. So go check that out tomorrow. Johanna, thanks for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you
Absolutely.
so much.
Folks, thank you so much for being here as well, for being the third guest on the show as always. And if you like this video, you can hit like. If you hate it, dislike it. But if you love it, think about subscribing. There's a Patreon in the description. It's optional, but always appreciated. Until we see you next time, be good, be safe, and remember to always keep turning the page.